I turned my everyday skills into divine powers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101. This story is not simple. In front of the main Xiang Manlao restaurant, a middle-aged Taoist priest, in tattered clothes and an unshaven beard approached. He looked up at the plaque and said with a smile, "This should be it." But just as he was about to enter the restaurant, his eyes fell on the two stone Pi Xiu statues at the entrance. A subtle glint of insight flashed in his eyes. He then examined the Pi Xiu statues more closely and was even more astonished. He clearly sensed a special aura surrounding the stone statues, a force of heaven and earth surrounding them. But even with his spiritual sense, he couldn't discern their profound meaning. This restaurant is quite something. The slovenly Taoist priest sighed inwardly, his interest in Xiang Manlao growing stronger. "Welcome, distinguished guest. Please come in." The waiters hurriedly greeted the slovenly Taoist priest as he entered the restaurant. They were all experienced waiters, and naturally, they wouldn't judge a person by appearance. Furthermore, despite the Taoist priest's disheveled and scruffy appearance, he was no exception. But the robe was spotless, a sight unmistakable of no ordinary person. The sloppy Taoist replied casually, his gaze lingering on some ornaments and paintings. Each object emanated a strange celestial energy, clearly no ordinary object. "Sir, please take a seat. What would you like to order? We have steamed lamb, steamed bear paws, steamed deer tails." The waiter began to offer his thoughts on the restaurant's specialties. But the sloppy Taoist interrupted, "Do you have Lanling wine?" "Of course. Lanling wine is our best seller. I wonder what flavor you'd like. We have strong flavored and sauce flavored." Upon hearing the waiter's words, the sloppy Taoist's eyes lit up. There were so many different flavors. Not bad, not bad. There were indeed surprises here. "Haha, bring me a pot each, so I can try," the sloppy Taoist said with a smile. "Okay, would you like some more appetizers? Our restaurant's dishes are city famous and the taste is unparalleled. Then 2 more of your best-selling appetizers." "Okay, wait a moment. By the way, where is your owner?" the sloppy Taoist asked. "Over there, our owner Meng." The waiter pointed to Meng Shulian, who had just come down the stairs. The sloppy Taoist stood up and walked over. He glanced at Meng Shulian briefly, noticing the unusual jade pendant around her waist. It seemed the person behind this restaurant was definitely a master refiner. Who knew which master refiner had opened a restaurant here and brewed such delicious wine? "You are the owner, right?" "Yes, dear guest. What can I do for you?" Meng Shulian asked with a smile. "Who wrote the calligraphy on the wall?" the sloppy Taoist asked again. "It's our restaurant's head shopkeeper, Wei Yi." Hearing Meng Shulian's words, the sloppy Taoist pondered for a moment. He hadn't heard of that name. "Oh, I wonder where he is. Could I meet him? He went to King Feng Academy and should be back around noon," Meng Shulian said. She knew Wei Yi usually went home to cook for himself, unless he had something extremely important to do. "Okay, then I'll eat while I wait for him," the sloppy Taoist said with a smile. He wasn't in a rush anyway. This restaurant had so many fine wines, and he definitely wanted to try them all today. The sloppy Taoist returned to his seat, where the waiter had already brought him several jugs of wine. He explained each flavor to him one by one. He eagerly poured himself a glass of the sauce-flavored Lanling wine and gulped it down. A look of surprise filled his face. Delicious. The new flavors brought him another surprise, leaving him incredibly satisfied. The sloppy Taoist sampled various other Lanling wines and was pleasantly surprised. Each one had a unique texture and flavor, with distinct layers of flavor and a distinct aftertaste that simply made him want to try more. Even combining the different flavors offered an even more novel taste experience. Then, the appetizers he'd ordered arrived, and they were equally satisfying. They complemented the wine beautifully. This is what fine wine and fine food are all about. Having traveled extensively, he tasted many delicious dishes. The dishes at Xiang Manlao were definitely among the best, and the wines were unparalleled, save for a small pot of celestial dew he'd once accidentally drunk in a paradise. Perhaps, in this world, only Lanling wine could truly be called fine wine. Paired with the delicious food, he quickly devoured several pots of wine. The sloppy Taoist then asked the waiter to bring a few more. The restaurant filled up with customers, and by noontime, it was completely packed and bustling. The sloppy Taoist priest called the waiter again, asking if Wei Yi had returned. The waiter explained this to Meng Shulian, and after receiving permission, he went to the backyard to inquire. He learned that Wei Yi had returned. The waiter returned to the restaurant and said to the Taoist priest, "Dear guest, our shopkeeper Wei has returned." "Oh, where is he? I would like to see him," the Taoist priest asked with a hint of joy. "He's at his house in the backyard. If you wish to see him, I'll go and inform him." "Okay." The waiter went back to the backyard and informed him of the situation. Wei Yi was surprised to hear that a Taoist priest in the restaurant wanted to see him, wondering if it was Sun Lin. "Please invite the Taoist priest to the hall," Wei Yi said to the servant. The servant relayed Wei Yi's words to the waiter. Soon after, the waiter led the sloppy Taoist priest into the courtyard. The servant then ushered him into the hall. Wei Yi was slightly surprised to see the slovenly Taoist priest walk into the room. He didn't recognize him, but judging by his attire and appearance, he looked either a charlatan or a master. However, after careful observation, Wei Yi determined it was the latter. "Greetings, Taoist priest. May I know your name?" Wei Yi bowed, smiling. "My Taoist name is Yipin," the slovenly Taoist priest said with a smile. He studied Wei Yi carefully, his gaze etched with surprise. The man before him was indeed not someone he knew. Nor was he, as he had suspected, a reclusive weapon refining master. He possessed no Zenki, true ki, or the virility of a warrior. Instead, he possessed an extremely strong and masculine constitution, emanating a unique aura. A certain auspicious aura enveloped him. It was clear he was no ordinary person, or perhaps destined for something extraordinary. As the saying goes, all things can be understood through the myriad paths of the Dao. Ultimately, any spiritual practice leads to the realization of the great Dao, the attainment of one's own path. The Daoist cultivation methods simply help mortals more easily enter the realm of cultivation. A longer life gives them more time to comprehend the Dao, and it also makes it easier for them to experience the Dao. But he also knew there was a type of person who might have been just an ordinary person, but suddenly realized the Dao, transforming from an ordinary person with no cultivation to a master of the Dao. And the Wei Yi before him might be one of those people. Thanks to Dark Knight Starry Night for the 100 starting coins, and thank you all for your monthly votes. Chapter 102 Magic Weapon. Wei Yi sat down with Taoist Master Yipin and had a maid serve tea. But Taoist Master Yipin said he didn't like tea, only wine. As he spoke, he took a sip from his wine gourd. "Are you satisfied with the food and wine here?" Wei Yi asked with a smile. "Yes, of course I am. This Lanling wine is truly a rare and precious wine, by the way. I have a magic weapon here. I wonder if I could trade it for some wine?" Taoist Master Yipin asked tentatively. As he spoke, he flipped his hand, and a black bad jade pendant suddenly appeared in his palm. A halo of light flashed and disappeared, and it seemed as if a black bird flitted by. Wei Yi's eyes lit up, and he examined the jade pendant carefully. It was truly extraordinary. Furthermore, as he examined the jade pendant, the golden light in his sea of consciousness shifted. A golden thread extended again, and landed in the black bad jade pendant. Simultaneously, a halo of light also illuminated the jade pendant, flickering faintly, as if in some kind of response. Seeing this, Taoist Master Yipin's eyes lit up with surprise. He gazed at the jade pendant with some surprise, then looked at Wei Yi and said, "It seems this item is meant for you. What does this jade pendant do?" Wei Yi's face lit up with interest. Being able to trigger the golden light within his sea of consciousness, this jade pendant must be quite extraordinary. It's a protective magical weapon, activated by Zenki. Taoist Master Yipin continued. "To be honest, I don't have any cultivation skills, so I'm afraid I can't use it," Wei Yi said. Hearing Wei Yi's words, Taoist Master Yipin nodded, secretly believing he must have been right. Wei Yi indeed had no cultivation skills. The presence of those extraordinary items in the store might indeed be related to the unique aura emanating from him. The Zuo Jade pendant had also reacted earlier. It seemed that giving it to Wei Yi was finding a good home for it. It doesn't matter if you don't have any cultivation. This jade pendant is very spiritual. Carry it with you. Even if you can't activate it, if you are truly in danger, it will actively protect you. Taoist Master Yipin continued. Although he couldn't be completely certain, the jade pendant had just resonated with Wei Yi, indicating that it was very fond of him. Such a spiritual magical weapon could actively protect Wei Yi. How much fine wine do you plan to exchange for this jade pendant? Wei Yi asked with a smile. Just this good of Lanling wine will be fine. Taoist Master Yipin smiled slyly. Haha, Taoist Master, you are joking. I'm afraid there is another world inside your gourd. I'm afraid the wine in my shop may not be able to fill it. Wei Yi said with a smile. Haha, not that exaggerated. But how much Lanling wine do you think my jade pendant is worth? How about this, Taoist priest? I'll take your jade pendant. From now on, you can come to my place for drinks and meals, all free. Come anytime, and drink as much as you want. What do you think? Wei Yi said with a smile. Okay, deal. But I have to go to Xuanzang Mountain soon, and I'm afraid I won't be back soon. Could you please bring me 10 or 8 jars of wine, so I can enjoy them on the way? Taoist priest Yipin said. No problem. Wei Yi nodded. Then it's a deal. Taoist priest Yipin waved his hand, and the jade pendant automatically flew to Wei Yi. Wei Yi took it, and felt it was warm to the touch, not even a hint of coldness. It was as if it wasn't just a piece of jade, but something with life and warmth. Taoist priest, I have another favor to ask. Do you have a cultivation technique that would suit me? I'm willing to exchange anything for it, Wei Yi added. He could tell that Taoist Master Yipin was undoubtedly a master, likely possessing numerous cultivation techniques. Perhaps he could ask him for another cultivation technique to practice. Yes, I do, but cultivation is by no means easy, and practicing halfway is even more difficult. My advice is, if you have your own path, stick to it. One day, you'll have the opportunity to comprehend the great Dao, and even attain immortality. If you want everything, you may end up with nothing. Cultivation techniques are merely supplementary. If you want to achieve the great Dao, relying solely on them won't help. Taoist Master Yipin's expression was serious, each word precise. Wei Yi was deeply moved by his words. Taoist Master Yipin's meaning was clear. He was telling him that skill was close to the Dao, and that as long as he adhered to his own path, he would have a chance to attain the Dao and become an immortal one day. Furthermore, any cultivation technique required immense time and effort to practice. His time was limited, and if he had to both gain experience and cultivate, he'd probably end up accomplishing nothing. It would be better to rely on the system, to cultivate his skills diligently, and he could also achieve immortality. This path was even faster than cultivating the true self. It seemed that Taoist Yipin was truly remarkable, having discerned some clues. Wei Yi knew he wouldn't be able to tell he had a system, but he should be able to deduce from some clues that he wasn't an ordinary person and must have his own path of cultivation. That's why he said that. Thank you for your guidance, Taoist. I understand. Wei Yi stood up, bowed respectfully, and said gratefully. As he spoke, Juzi walked in. She meowed sweetly at Wei Yi twice, then glanced at Taoist Yipin next to her, her eyes gleaming with intelligence. Taoist Yipin's gaze brightened slightly upon noticing the orange cat, and he smiled faintly, waving to Juzi. Juzi looked at him, then back at Wei Yi. Go. Wei Yi thought. Juzi then walked over. Taoist Yipin held Orange in his arms, looked at him, and said with a smile, what a clever cat. He touched Orange's forehead with his palm, and a gleam of light flashed in his palm. The orange cat's gaze seemed to undergo another subtle shift. However, Wei Yi, who had a telepathic connection with Orange, was moved, secretly delighted. This poor Taoist had actually taught the orange cat a cultivation method, and one that was specifically suited to the orange cat. This was truly a great blessing for the orange cat. Master, I've brewed some medicinal wine. Would you like to try it? Very good. Taoist Yipin said with a smile. He then touched the orange cat's head again, before letting it go. The orange cat meowed a few times at Taoist Yipin, and Wei Yi could sense it expressing its gratitude. Wei Yi sent for 2 medicinal wines, one to nourish the body, and the other, made with the flesh and blood of demon beasts, to replenish blood, ki, and zen ki. The former tasted excellent, even better than the fine wine of Lanling. Taoist Master Yipin tasted each one, and was pleasantly surprised. While the medicinal wine's effects were minimal for him, it was undeniable that, if consumed by ordinary cultivators, these wines would still have a significant effect. Your Excellency is truly skilled in brewing. I also really like the taste of this wine, Taoist Master Yipin said with a smile. Since Taoist Master likes it, I'll give you some more, Wei Yi said, actually wanting to thank Taoist Master Yipin on Orange's behalf. While Orange might not need the wine, he'd consider it a chance to try something new. Chapter 103, Prepare for a Rainy Day. Wei Yi cooked several dishes, and invited Master Yipin to join him for lunch. Wei Yi's cooking captivated Master Yipin's palate, earning him endless praise. If the dishes he had recently tasted at Xiangmenlao ranked highly in his mind, then Wei Yi's cooking was second to none, unmatched. After lunch, Master Yipin departed. Before leaving, Wei Yi brought him 10 jars of Lanling wine and 2 jars of medicinal wine. Master Yipin placed all of these into his gourd. Clearly, Wei Yi's suspicion was correct. The gourd was a remarkable magical artifact, a treasure trove of secrets. It could hold hundreds of jars of wine, potentially more than enough. Furthermore, it could store different types of wine separately, without affecting each other. After Master Yipin's departure, Wei Yi devoted himself to honing his writing skills. He no longer held a preoccupation with martial arts cultivation or spiritual cultivation. With the system in hand, was he still worried about not being able to forge his own path? After dinner, Wei Yi went to Fang with Jiuo Pixiu again. But he wasn't there to listen to music. Instead, he came to confirm Liu Ru's identity with Han Kuang, and get to know her, so they could exchange information in the future. Sure enough, not long after Wei Yi arrived at Fang, he was invited alone to Han Kuang's private room, amid the envious gazes of the guests. Wei Yi knew Han Kuang's identity. Shachen had also told him that Mr. Gong and Han Kuang were 2 people he could trust with absolute confidence. Once in Han Kuang's room, Wei Yi chatted with her for a while, and listened to her sing When Will the Bright Moon Rise? Then, while pretending to drink and chat, he quietly got down to business. He first confirmed Liu Ru's identity with Han Kuang. As he had suspected, Liu Ru was also a member of the Xiangsha Alliance and a trustworthy person. Han Kuang also shared some potentially important news with Wei Yi. The Shinran sect was planning to build a Taoist temple in King's House City. This also meant they were about to extend their reach into King's House City. Suzhe and Du Shaoling's greatest fears were about to come true. King's House City was poised for a major change. Based on the celestial beings' practices elsewhere, their establishment of a Taoist temple would inevitably lead to embezzlement and exploitation of the city's citizens, forcing merchants to contribute financially and the people to labor without restraint. Furthermore, they would collude with the government to establish a new chamber of commerce, with their members controlling all commerce in the city, facilitating their extortion efforts. They would also monopolize industries and target merchants who refuse to submit. This would completely destroy the city's established business environment and further undermine the good order Wei Yi had established there. Han Kuang told Wei Yi about this because he had numerous businesses in the city, hoping he would be mentally prepared and take precautions. However, according to Han Kuang, the Xiangsha Alliance was also fully engaged in combating the celestial being's influence and would do its utmost to prevent its spread to King's House City. Shachen was currently carrying out anti-celestial beings activities in other areas. But besides the celestial beings' threat, now, the Western kingdoms are also beginning to stir, intending to invade. Therefore, the Great Yan dynasty may face internal and external troubles, a precarious and turbulent situation. This news suddenly made Wei Yi feel heavy. He had previously learned some information about the Shinran sect from Shachen, and from the conversations between Suzhe and Du Shaoling, he also glimpsed the chaos in the court and the internal and external troubles of the country. He had not expected everything to happen so quickly. As the saying goes, when the nest is overturned, no eggs can remain intact. He really needed to make plans early. In fact, Wei Yi's main reason for joining the Xianxia Alliance was to use their intelligence network to gain more information about the situation in the Great Yan dynasty. Because intelligence means the upper hand, a lack of information can sometimes mean the difference between life and death. It's like the weather forecast in his previous life. Because of the weather forecast, at least when it rained heavily, he could have an umbrella nearby to protect him. This is the importance of information. After all, he not only needs to protect himself, but also his family and friends. Of course, he wanted to protect this city and his current stable life even more. He and his family had already experienced displacement and uprooting their homeland once, and they truly didn't want to experience it again. Moreover, he now had so many businesses and friends in King's House City. His life had just become happy and prosperous, and he didn't want it to be destroyed. If possible, he was willing to protect it all. This, in turn, required the help of the Xianxia Alliance. He needed more intelligence to understand how to proceed. If he became even stronger with his own abilities, perhaps, in conjunction with the Xianxia Alliance, he could truly turn the tide. In his previous life, Wei Yi couldn't control his own destiny. But in this life, he hoped to gain control of his own destiny and protect the beautiful things he desired. Returning home from Fang, Wei Yi once again fetched his brush and ink and resumed his calligraphy skills. He knew that the power most likely to create miracles now lay in the forest of brush and ink. The next day, east of King's House City, at the Yu family mansion. The Yu family was also a long-standing martial arts family, a prominent and prestigious family within King's House City. The Cayenne Gang, one of King's House City's 3 major gangs, controlled a modest family business, but was equally wealthy and powerful. Their prestige even surpassed that of the Guo family. At this moment, the young members of the Yu family had just finished their morning exercises and returned to the courtyard from the martial arts arena. However, in the cold wind, the sound of recitation echoed. The master said, "When 3 walk together, there must be one who can be my teacher. Therefore, the disciple need not be inferior to the teacher, and the teacher need not be superior to the disciple." The master said, "When poor, one should improve oneself. When rich, one should benefit the world." The person reciting was the Yu family's eldest son, Yu Qingnian. He was also a student at King Feng Academy, and the content he was reciting was the collection of Wei Yi sayings compiled by Du Shaoling. But upon hearing this recitation, several young members of the Yu family sneered with disdain. So-called sage books, they just don't speak human language. Haha, yeah, I don't understand a word. It's all just nonsense. I don't know what the point of reciting these flowery words every day is. It's just tiresome. What a loser. No matter how many books he reads, it's just a waste of money. I think he's almost gone mad from reading so much lately. He's just talking nonsense all the time. The mockers were Yu Qingnian's younger brothers. They were all born to concubines. Yu Qingnian, however, was the legitimate son of the first wife and should have been the heir to the position of patriarch. However, due to his poor physique and frail health, he was unable to practice martial arts and lost his right to inherit the throne. Although he was unwilling to accept this, he had no choice. After all, that was the family rule. Furthermore, the Yu family's illegitimate sons, influenced and instigated by their mother since childhood, had always looked down on Yu Qingnian, the legitimate son. They often mocked and criticized him for not being able to practice martial arts. The Yu family values martial arts over literature. They have many warriors, but almost no scholars. One of the most important factors is that the ancestors of the Yu family were criminals. According to the laws of the Great Yan dynasty, the children of the Yu family will no longer have the possibility of a career in the government. Therefore, in the eyes of everyone in the Yu family, studying has no future. It's a pity that Yu Qingnian has no talent for martial arts, but he loves reading and is quite talented in literature. This may be due to his inherited genes and influence from his mother. Unfortunately, in this martial arts family, he, a scholar, has become an outlier and a complete waste in the eyes of his peers. They think that he spends a lot of money every day reading useless books. In the end, he will probably only be able to be a private school teacher. That's why they are so sarcastic. Thanks to Dark Knight Starry Sky for the reward of 500 starting coins. Thanks to Dafengti for the reward of 100 starting coins, and thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 104 Spark. At the Wei family, Wei Yi summoned Jiuo Pixiu and Meng Shulian to his home early in the morning. He informed them that starting today, they would begin selling medicinal wine in restaurants and taverns. He even instructed Jiuo Pixiu to select several prime locations and open several more medicinal wine shops specifically for martial artists. Wei Yi wanted to further expand his influence and network before the political upheaval. When the existence of a certain person directly impacts the vital interests of the majority, unless that person commits suicide, a large group of people will undoubtedly protect them and not want them to die. This medicinal wine would have such an effect. He was confident that once released, it would capture the hearts of martial artists. He had absolute confidence in the efficacy of his medicinal wine, surpassing even the competition by a wide margin. Furthermore, its affordable price meant it would undoubtedly be sought after by martial artists upon release. They might even consider it a miracle drug. Thus, his very existence would affect the vital interests of many martial artists. If one day in the future someone truly blind threatens his interests, countless warriors will surely rise to his aid. After completing all this, Wei Yi returned to his study and wrote a poem on rice paper. The waves of West Lake are white, the leaves are sparse, and the swallows and wild geese begin to fly in the tang clouds. The tang clouds are cold, and the swallows and wild geese suffer. The wind whistles over the sands, and the Zhao and Hui rivers slump. The loyal warriors mourn the autumn, their tears falling like rain. The sun is at the center of the sky, and its light can serve the wise lord. The warriors are indignant, and heroic spirit arises. How can I obtain the heavenly sword and cross the sea to slay the whale? This is a poem by Li Bei, and Wei Yi has adapted it for local use. However, this hasn't destroyed the poem's original artistic conception and emotion. On the surface, the poem seems to extol martyrs of ancient and modern times, expressing his aspiration to serve his country and strengthen it. However, it also conveys the disappointment of being unappreciated and unable to contribute. It also reflects his grief and worry about the current situation in the court. It also expresses his resolute refusal to be associated with treacherous and corrupt officials. Wei Yi felt that the artistic conception of this poem would undoubtedly resonate strongly with Du Shaoling, as well as the students and teachers at the academy. They studied diligently, naturally hoping to serve the country and revitalize the Great Yan dynasty. However, in today's world, talented individuals are often undervalued. Furthermore, these students had all grown up under Du Shaoling's guidance. Naturally, they shared his values, ideas, and vision. They would undoubtedly share his dissatisfaction and indignation towards the Shinran sect and the current court. Therefore, this poem would undoubtedly resonate deeply with them. Today, Wei Yi would use this poem to demonstrate the power of the brush and ink to the students. He would also test the power of the brilliant brush strokes, condensed with the collective resonance of the crowd. In the future, he could also use this poem to enhance the sword's power and might. After breakfast, Yu Qingnian, as usual, rode in a carriage to Qingfeng Academy. Yesterday, Master Du announced that the day would be off, but he summoned Yu Qingnian and 20 or so other students to the Sage Hall. He explained that they were fortunate to be chosen by Master Wei as the first group of writers, and would be at the academy today to receive Master Wei's legacy. Although Master Du didn't specify what a writer meant, Yu Qingnian still felt immense anticipation and pride. He was delighted to have been chosen by Master Wei to become that so-called writer. He also looked forward to receiving Master Wei's legacy, though he didn't know what it would be. Shortly after arriving at the academy, the students were summoned to the academy's playground. Despite the biting cold wind, their hearts were burning with excitement. Du Shaoling, standing on the stage, looked down upon the students below, his heart equally filled with excitement. He knew that after today, these 30 people, like himself, would begin a brand new life, completely transforming their destinies. Qingfeng Academy would also undergo earth-shattering changes. It would become more than just a place for teaching and educating. It will also become the birthplace of Confucian and Taoist cultivation, a true sanctuary for scholars, and the hope for the future of the Great Yan dynasty. This place will rewrite history and the fate of scholars. Scholars will not only possess a wealth of knowledge, but also possess the extraordinary power to fight enemies in battle and slay demons. These 30 people today will be like a spark. They will be ignited by Wei Yi. One day, with the force of a prairie fire, they will sweep away the treacherous and corrupt, restore the court, and restore order to the great Yan dynasty. They will also spark a wave of enthusiasm for Confucian and Taoist cultivation. The future world will no longer be dominated by warriors and cultivators alone. Scholars will also have a place and a voice. Du Shaoling did not immediately explain the reason for summoning them here today. Instead, he first explained the current situation in the court and the internal and external troubles facing the great Yan dynasty. He emphasized the current lack of support for scholars in the court, explaining how they are suppressed and marginalized by the treacherous Shanren sect. Though this was a commonplace, it was brought up again today to build momentum and galvanize everyone's fighting spirit. Wei Yi's core purpose in establishing Confucianism was to rally the strength of scholars, uniting them in a united struggle against the Shanren sect. One day, he would eradicate the treacherous and restore the country. Du Shaoling's encouragement stirred the students' spirits. Their hearts were filled with indignation and resentment. They were all talented individuals, harboring ideals and ambitions, and possessing integrity. Naturally, they refused to be oppressed by those sycophantic officials, or to be humiliated by the Shanren sect's cultivators. However, given the current situation, they felt deeply frustrated. From today on, the fate of us scholars will change drastically. We will no longer be merely knowledgeable, but also possess the courage and power to defeat our enemies, Du Shaoling declared with conviction. However, these words surprised everyone present, who were unsure of their true meaning. Du Shaoling understood the confusion in everyone's hearts, for their expressions were almost identical to his own the day he heard Wei Yi say that poetry could kill enemies and lyrics could destroy armies. So, without further ado, he immediately explained the cultivation methods of the spirit of writing and ink. His words completely shocked everyone present, overturning their preconceptions. A commotion erupted in the playground, and everyone was momentarily overcome with emotion, thrilled yet incredulous. After all, what Du Shaoling was saying was simply too unbelievable. Master, is what you say true? Yes. Can we really cultivate through writing? Incredible. Master, can we truly gain extraordinary powers? Unable to contain their excitement, the crowd, momentarily disregarding etiquette, opened their mouths and began to question. If Du Shaoling hadn't said this, they would have suspected he was mentally ill. Chapter 105. This is Confucianism. Yu Qinglian's heart pounded at Du Shaoling's words, his blood boiling. More than anyone present, he yearned for power, for strength. He loved reading, poetry, and song, but as a member of martial arts family, he naturally aspired to cultivate the martial arts and possess extraordinary powers like his brothers. If possible, he wished to be both civil and military, to bring honor to his mother, and become the pride of the Yu family. He didn't want to be ridiculed and looked down upon, even by his father. His ever-strong mother would also be gossiped about by the concubines. Master Du's words, however, rekindled hope in his long-despaired heart. While he still couldn't practice martial arts, he could transform words and knowledge into extraordinary power. Perhaps one day, he could show those who looked down on him and scholars that he could become a true hero. A scholar's vast knowledge could be transformed into a powerful weapon, a powerful supernatural power. Yet, all this beauty made Yu Qinglian wonder if it was all just a dream. When he woke, reality would return. He pinched himself. It hurt, but his smile only grew wider. Seeing the disbelief on everyone's faces, Du Shaoling spoke again. When I first heard the news, I felt the same as you do. But when I saw Master Wei display his magical powers, when I saw the forest of brush and ink, I knew it was all true. Du Shaoling recounted the events of that day in detail. Hearing Du Shaoling's description, everyone's hearts were restless, a mixture of shock and excitement. A surge of passion surged through their veins. They had never dreamed that the knowledge they had learned would one day transform into extraordinary power. A mere scholar like them could possess the power to vanquish demons and monsters. They eagerly anticipated Wei Yi's arrival, eager to witness the miracle with their own eyes. They yearned even more for the possibility of cultivating the spirit of brush and ink and possessing extraordinary powers themselves. When Wei Yi arrived at King Feng Academy, the entire playground was abuzz with activity. Everyone's spirits were high, their faces flushed, their hearts warmed, their blood boiling, a warmth that had already melted the cold winter. Seeing Wei Yi arrive, their expressions grew even more excited, but their gazes toward Wei Yi were filled with immense reverence, a burning passion. They already admired Wei Yi deeply. Now, knowing that he possessed extraordinary powers, had created the Confucian and Taoist spiritual systems, and had given them hope for changing their lives and destinies, their gratitude and respect for him could no longer be overstated. Even the sages in the Academy's Temple of Sages couldn't possibly compare to Wei Yi. Students pay their respects to Master Wei. Everyone bowed in unison, their voices resounding with excitement, their voices resounding with power. Wei Yi, watching the students below bowing to him, was also deeply moved. Though there were only 30 people at the moment, the aura was already astonishing. Imagine the spectacle of tens of millions of students paying their respects to him in the future. That aura alone would surely be enough to repel many powerful enemies. No need for formalities. Wei Yi declared loudly, standing atop the platform, overlooking the crowd. He stood tall and straight, and in the sunlight, his presence seemed shrouded in a faint glow. With his elegant and handsome features and his otherworldly aura, he truly resembled a banished immortal. Everyone's gaze converged on Wei Yi, intense and excited. Wei Yi didn't waste time. After all, Du Shaoling had already said everything he needed to say. He then took up his brush in his right hand, and began to write in the air before him. Rays of light gathered at the tip of his brush, and individual words emerged from the void. A majestic aura surged forth, rippling the surrounding void. This magical scene left everyone stunned and astonished. The overwhelming power filled them with awe, their hair standing on end. Although they had heard Du Shaoling describe the scene before, witnessing it with their own eyes was still deeply moving and awe-inspiring. Wei Yi wrote down the poem he had specially prepared. The waves of West Lake are white, the leaves are sparse, the swallows and wild geese begin to fly into the tank clouds. The warrior's anger arouses his heroic spirit. I wish I had the sword of the heavenly sword to cross the sea and slay the whale. As the poem was completed, a solemn and murderous atmosphere permeated, inspiring awe. Suddenly, they seemed to see soldiers marching out into the bitter cold. They were worthy of heaven, worthy of the people, and even more worthy of their king. They wanted to defend their homeland, to reclaim the land. However, the odds were against them, and the road ahead was bleak, making their journey difficult. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to transform into thick, dark clouds, obscuring the sun. Even the sky above the playground seemed to dim. An unresolved grief and resentment seemed to well up in their hearts. Their ambitions were unfulfilled, their service to their country was unattainable. But just as the dark clouds loomed, a long sword was unsheathed, its momentum surging like a rainbow, splitting the clouds apart, bringing a sudden light. The momentum, in these rising and falling moments, felt like a burst of accumulated strength, a counterattack after forbearance. It felt heroic and exhilarating. Just like the sword, after being honed, finally attained a razor-sharp edge, unleashing unstoppable force, slaying the demonic force. This powerful poetic spirit and aura shook everyone present. They felt as if they were being emotionally moved, deeply touched. Their hearts raced, their breathing quickened, yet their blood surged with passion, their spirits high. Within them, a heroic spirit seemed to well up, a long sword in hand, to cleave the dark clouds of this troubled world, to sweep away the treacherous. Recite with me, Wei Yi shouted. Then, aloud, he said, I wish I had the sword of heaven, to cross the sea, and slay the whale. I wish I had the sword of heaven, to cross the sea, and slay the whale. As the students recited in unison, the words in the void shone brighter. Waves of unstoppable majestic energy surged forth, like raging waves, like a mighty army. Seeing this scene, everyone present, including Du Shaoling, was filled with astonishment. They had never expected their recitation to produce such a scene. Suddenly, his heart surged, and he continued to recite aloud along with Wei Yi. How I wish I had the sword of heaven, to cross the sea, and slay the whale. How I wish I had the sword of heaven, to cross the sea, and slay the whale. With each shout, a will coalesced. The poem before Wei Yi seemed to mobilize the power of heaven and earth, and the sound of wind and thunder echoed between heaven and earth. He lightly tapped the brush in his hand on the void. All the words instantly coalesced, transforming into a silver sword shadow. This sword shadow was identical to Wei Yi's sword of heaven, formed only by the aura of brush and ink and the power of heaven and earth. The sword light was dazzling, its sharpness intimidating. At the same time, Wei Yi raised his brush and swung it upwards. The sword shadow seemed to transform into thunder, like a silver dragon, soaring into the sky. The next second, accompanied by a rumbling sound, a silver sword light seemed to streak across the sky. The sea of clouds, once flat across the sky, was split in two, as if combing a middle part across the sea of clouds. Silence. Gazing at the sundered sea of clouds in the sky, the students gaped in amazement, their hair standing on end, their hearts awestruck, their breath barely catching. But after the shock wore off, their blood rushed to their hair, their faces flushed, their expressions agitated. They had truly witnessed the essence of Confucianism and the power of words. Wei Yi had just used that poem to transform into a heavenly sword, slicing through the sea of clouds. Such a miraculous sight was something they had never witnessed before. Perhaps only an enlightened immortal could possess such a power. Thank you for your monthly votes. Chapter 106, Strong Sword Intent. However, this scene had also captured the attention of countless people in the city. Ordinary people, unaware of what had happened, were simply startled by the thunder. Then, in astonishment, they watched as a crack appeared in the sea of clouds. At the entrance of Xiangmen Lao, a man with a long sword slung over his back paused. He gazed at the sea of clouds in astonishment. Such a powerful sword spirit. In a secluded house behind the Wan family ancestral hall, Wang Yinchang stood respectfully before a shrine, speaking something. Atop the shrine, a small red fox lazily crouched. But then, as if teleporting, the red fox flew to the window. Glancing up at the sky, it uttered in human language, "Surely there are masters in this city. Great immortal, what happened?" Wang Yinchang stared at the red fox in surprise, unsure of what had happened. "Little Wanzi, I, the great immortal, accept your offerings only to ensure your safety. Don't discuss anything else. I'm in seclusion for the time being. Unless it's something important, please don't disturb my quiet time." With that, the red fox transformed into a shadow, flew into the shrine, and vanished. Atop the red sleeves pavilion, a girl in green and a girl in purple were leaning against the windows, watching the scene in the sky. What a powerful sword intent. I wonder which sword master unleashed that strike. The girl in green exclaimed, slightly surprised. The girl in purple nodded, remaining silent. Within the Great Yan dynasty, those who could reach such a level could be counted on one hand. It was unknown which of them had arrived in King's House City, and why they had unleashed such a powerful sword strike. Inside the Jinggan Palace, the old prince of the Zhao family, along with several martial arts masters of the Zhao family, gazed at the sky in astonishment. That sword strike had truly shaken the heavens and earth, sending a chill through their hearts, and causing their hair to stand on end. Although the sword intent had long since dissipated, a chilling aura of murderous intent lingered in the air, echoing with the sound of wind and thunder. Wei Yi himself was equally astonished. He had wanted to test the power of poetry, condensed with the will and emotional resonance of everyone, to reveal its mighty power. He hadn't expected the sword strike to possess such power. If it hadn't sent its might soaring into the heavens, it would have wreaked havoc anywhere within the academy. Wei Yi felt that this single strike was powerful enough to slay warriors of the 5th rank or even higher. Indeed, after incorporating Du Shaoling's brush and ink energy, the forest of ink had transformed into a true forest. Its power had been greatly enhanced. Wei Yi also suspected that the golden light could also birth the brush and ink energy. Combined with the emotional resonance and strong willpower of the students, it formed a sword that split the sea of clouds. Excellent. This brilliant brush stroke, condensed with the power of resonance, is truly formidable. Wei Yi exclaimed excitedly. With this brush and ink energy, he would have ample self-defense. Furthermore, inscribing this poem into his heavenly sword would further enhance its power. With the combined power of all the students, their combined resonance, and a vast forest of brush and ink, he would possess the true power to protect himself in this world. Thinking of this, Wei Yi suddenly felt that the sword strike had also shattered the haze within him. Whether it was the celestial being sect or the threat from the enemy nation, it seemed that before his sword, the clouds would eventually see the light. Just imagine the resonance of just 30 people. If the brilliant power of his pen could condense the resonance of tens of thousands of generals, what mighty power would be unleashed? Du Shaoling and the others gazed at the sky, their excitement taking a long time to calm. The sword strike had split open not only the sea of clouds, but also the uncertain future within them, a brand new life. They saw a new world, a new future. They yearned for this power, longed to become the Confucian and Taoist practitioners Master Du had spoken of. You saw it just now. This is Confucianism. Words are like knives. Poetry is like swords. They can slay enemies, destroy armies, slay demons, and even conquer mountains and rivers. Wei Yi's voice echoed again. Everyone fell silent, listening intently to Wei Yi's words, their eyes blazing with excitement. I cultivate the spirit of calligraphy and ink, as well as knowledge and talent, and even more importantly, self-cultivation and moral integrity. Being the first group of students I've selected for King Feng Academy today doesn't mean you're superior, nor does it mean you're above everyone else. I've chosen you simply because you're more diligent and hardworking than the average person. And the most important qualities in Confucianism are diligence and effort. You must also remember that this extraordinary power placed in your hands is a responsibility, a heavy burden. Wei Yi began another round of brainwashing while teaching. His main purpose was to warn them, to prevent them from becoming complacent and forgetting their own priorities after suddenly possessing extraordinary power. Students understand. Everyone responded in unison, their expression serious. Wei Yi said no more. Since he had chosen these people, he naturally trusted their virtue. Moreover, their current role was to contribute the spirit of calligraphy and ink. Whether they could harness the power of this spirit in the future depended entirely on their own control. Therefore, he wasn't afraid of their misuse of it. Wei Yi paused and continued, if you wish to become a Confucian and Taoist practitioner, you must remember these 4 sacred words. Establish your mind for heaven and earth, establish your destiny for the people, carry on the lost teachings of the ancient sages, and bring peace to the world for eternity. As soon as Wei Yi uttered these words, they once again astonished everyone present. These words were concise and profound, resonating like thunder, striking the heart. Even Du Shaoling felt as if his soul had been touched, as if struck by lightning. In an instant, countless golden points of light converged on Wei Yi's sea of consciousness. The blazing golden sun seemed to grow even larger. Under the golden light, the forest of brush and ink seemed even more lush and vibrant. Next, I will teach you the method of cultivation, opening your sea of consciousness and converging the forest of brush and ink. Wei Yi continued. He then instructed everyone to join hands, form a circle, sit cross-legged, and close their eyes. He instructed them to silently recite the 4 sacred words. At the same time, Wei Yi also controlled his own forest of brush and ink, establishing a connection with these students. Instantly, a vast amount of brush and ink energy converged within the forest within Wei Yi's sea of consciousness, condensing into a vast forest once again. Among the 30 people were several veteran teachers from the academy. They too had condensed a great deal of brush and ink energy, contributing to this forest. The consciousness of those 30 people was instantly drawn into the forest of brush and ink, entering a world that was, to them, incredibly mysterious and strange. After Wei Yi left the academy, Du Shaoling began organizing everyone to cultivate brush and ink energy together. As the saying goes, many hands make light work. The brush and ink energy within Wei Yi's sea of consciousness rapidly increased. In less than half an hour, it had condensed into a towering tree. Chapter 107. Demand outstrips supply. Brother Wei, have you heard? A sword immortal appeared in the city today. With one strike, he split the sea of clouds, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Thunder rumbled, and even the entire sky was shrouded in a powerful sword aura that lingered for a long time. Near dusk, Guo Pixiu returned to Wei Yi's study, beaming with joy as he recounted the news that had spread throughout the city. Originally, this incident hadn't attracted the attention of ordinary people, but through the imaginations of a few individuals and countless others, it had become a myth, becoming increasingly outrageous. Guo Pixiu's version was already quite ordinary, close to reality. Even more outrageous were reports of seeing the immortal Slayer dragon in the sea of clouds, some even hearing its roar. Others said the immortal had split the gates of heaven and ascended directly to the immortal realm. Of course I've heard of it, but why do you say it's a sword immortal? Maybe it's the magical power of a cultivator. My father said he felt an extremely powerful sword aura and was able to split the sea of clouds with a single sword strike. This is simply beyond the reach of mortals, so it must be a sword immortal. Geopixiu said seriously. Wei Yi nodded, not expecting the commotion his sword strike had caused today to be quite so loud. Is that what you came to me to talk about? Wei Yi knew Geopixiu had other intentions. Haha, of course not. I'm here to talk business. I've already taken care of the shop you asked me to find. It just needs a little tidying up, and we'll be open. Very good. Then, in the next 2 days, I'll have to trouble you to arrange for people to clean it up quickly, hire employees, and make a sign. We need to open as soon as possible. No problem. 2 days at most, guaranteed. By the way, do we want to go to Hangxia's Heyo tonight to advertise our medicinal liquor? Do you have any aphrodisiacs or any suitable for courtesans? I'm not going. You can go and help promote it yourself. We have medicinal liquors with every possible effect you can think of, Wei Yi said with a smile. He knew this was the main reason Geopixiu had come. Oh, alright then. Geopixiu was a little disappointed. He had been hoping to borrow some time to see Miss Liu dance again today. It seemed like tonight was out of the question. He couldn't understand why Wei Yi, with such a beautiful woman within his reach, would just write and paint all day. Isn't that boring? Inside the Yu family mansion, upon returning home from the academy, Yu Qingnian overheard his brothers excitedly discussing the story of the sword immortal splitting the sea of clouds with adoring expressions. He felt immensely proud, even secretly elated. The legend they were talking about was none other than Master Wei, the founder of their own academy. The sword immortal they spoke of was also his most admired teacher, the founder of Confucian and Taoist practices, a deity in his heart. He believed he would become a Confucian and Taoist practitioner in the future. While he might not reach Master Wei's power, he would certainly possess extraordinary strength to battle warriors. He also yearned for the look on his self-important brothers' faces when they learned that it wasn't the sword immortal who split the sea of clouds, but their own master. This thought filled Yu Qingnian with anticipation. With a surge of emotion, he returned to his study and immediately began writing, cultivating his pen and ink. And it wasn't just Yu Qingnian. The first group of writers today, upon hearing the various rumors circulating in the city, felt a surge of pride as well. They had never imagined that one day, these scholars would cause such a sensation, even creating such a miraculous legend. But they had sworn an oath before the sage statuted day not to disclose what had happened. Otherwise, their status as writers would be revoked, and they might even be expelled from the academy. So, naturally, they wouldn't tell anyone about what had happened, much less brag about it. After all, respecting teachers, keeping promises, and keeping a low profile were fundamental qualities. Furthermore, they knew they were only just beginning to cultivate the power of writing. They couldn't yet unleash the prowess of Master Wei, so even if they wanted to show off, they couldn't. No one would believe their words. After all, no one in this world knew what Confucianism and Taoism were. Even less would anyone believe that scholars could transform words into murderous force. They would likely be dismissed as bookworms, delusional. In the following days, Master Du made some adjustments and reforms to the academy, establishing an independent Confucian and Taoist college. The first group of writers also entered the college for individual training and cultivation. At the same time, an examination system was established for admission to the Confucian and Taoist Academy. All Qingfeng Academy students could gain admission by studying Wei Yi's poems and quotations and passing the examination. Although the students were unaware of the specific benefits of admission, they could clearly sense the pride they felt in attending the academy and the sense that they would receive focused training. This in turn motivated them to study Wei Yi's quotations and poems even more diligently. The academy also began recruiting students from the county and other cities. The Wei family's medicinal liquor shops also opened one after another. Leveraging the reputation built up by Lanling wine and Lansheng wine, sales of their medicinal liquors skyrocketed upon their release. Their medicinal liquors, especially those targeted at martial artists, became a hit within a few days of their release, generating widespread buzz and generating widespread acclaim among martial artists. Their products ranged from medicinal liquors for healing various injuries, to those for replenishing blood and assisting in training, to those for instantly boosting blood and increasing explosive power. These liquors quickly captured the hearts of martial artists. So, within a few days, all kinds of medicinal liquor were in short supply. Even warriors from surrounding towns came from far away to buy the liquor. After all, the Wei family's medicinal liquor was very affordable and powerful, which made them feel like they had found a treasure. Now, long lines form outside the medicinal liquor shop before it even opens every day. The Wei family's medicinal wine is really amazing. After I finished practicing yesterday, my body was sore and my right leg was sprained. As a result, I used that medicinal wine. When I woke up, I felt relaxed, and the injuries in my body were healed. It's amazing. Yes, this medicinal wine that replenishes blood and ki is also very effective. I feel that my current practice speed has increased by at least twice as much as before. Haven't you heard that General Lin's daughter Lin Zuna, with the help of the Wei family's medicinal wine, stepped from the 6th rank to the 5th rank? Is it true? Absolutely true. The news has spread. Lin Zuna is now the youngest 5th rank warrior in Qingsao Prefecture. No wonder so many people have bought medicinal wine recently. If I had known that they had just opened, I would have bought more to prepare. Now you can only queue up to buy it, and you may not even be able to buy it. Yes, there is a purchase limit now. You can only buy 1 jar, even if you queue up. The warriors queuing at the door of the medicinal wine shop talk to each other. Inside the Guo family mansion, Guo Pixiu, hungover from the previous night, was still asleep when a servant relayed a message that his father, Guo Dayan, wanted to see him. Hearing his father's request, Guo Pixiu jolted awake, frantically getting dressed before even opening his eyes. But before he could finish, Guo Dayan unexpectedly approached his door and walked in. "Good morning, Dad," Guo Pixiu said nervously, wondering if he had done something wrong to displease his father, who was coming to him so early to settle the score. After all, every time Guo Dayan came to his room, it was always to settle the score with him for something he had done that displeased him. At the very least, he would be scolded, or even physically assaulted. Guo Pixiu was utterly panicked, unable to even look Guo Dayan in the face. He even felt a burning pain on the left side of his cheek. Thank you to Supreme God and Demon for the 1666 book coins. Thank you to Zuangu and Fanhu for the 500 starting coins. Thank you to Digital Book Friend 2017 for the 100 starting coins. And thank you all for your monthly tickets. Thank you to all the book friends who subscribed. Chapter 108, Sword of Shadow. Drank too much again last night. Guo Dayan walked in with a serious expression. He immediately sat down on a nearby chair, his face expressionless, though he usually wore that same expression. "Ah, yes, I drank with young Master Wei. He was in a good mood, so I accidentally had a few too many. Dad, do you have something to ask me?" Guo Pixiu lowered his head and stammered. "Come and sit," Guo Dayan said. Huh. Guo Pixiu thought he had misheard and looked at Guo Dayan in surprise. "Come and sit," Guo Dayan repeated. Guo Pixiu finally realized what was happening and tiptoed to a nearby chair and sat down, still feeling a little uneasy. "Does the Wei family's medicinal wine shop have any of your business partners?" Guo Dayan asked. "Ah, no, I only have a few business partners in the brewery and restaurant. After all, my money is limited, so how is your relationship with young Master Wei?" Guo Dayan asked again. "That's very good, of course. We are as close as brothers, you could say," Guo Pixiu said with a hint of pride. Guo Dayan nodded. "In that case, could you ask young Master Wei to buy some medicinal liquor for Dad? The Wei family's medicinal liquor is quite difficult to come by right now." "Of course, no problem. With my relationship with Brother Wei, I'll give you as much as you want," Guo Pixiu said with a broad smile, his heart finally at ease. Clearly, his father hadn't come to reprimand him, but to ask for a favor. For the first time in his life, Guo Pixiu felt a little proud. His father finally knew his own worth. Hearing Guo Pixiu's words, Guo Dayan's serious face cracked into a rare smile, and he nodded. Very good. Please buy dad some of these medicinal liquors. Just pay the market price. We can't let the Wei family suffer. Guo Dayan handed Guo Pixiu a piece of paper. Okay, dad, leave it to me, Guo Pixiu said with a smile. Inside the Wei family compound, Wei King and Su Lingyan were feeding a flock of cats when they heard an excited cry. Young Master Wei, I'm coming, I'm coming. Along with the voice, a graceful figure in red ran into the yard. It was Lin Zuna. Miss Wei, where's your brother? Lin Zuna ran over excitedly, but her eyes couldn't help but meet Su Lingyan's. They immediately glanced at each other's chests. Big A versus small A then, they both unconsciously puffed out their chests, neither of them giving in. Miss Lin, my brother is in the study, Wei King said with a smile. Thank you. Lin Zuna immediately turned and ran to Wei Yi's study, her long ponytail swaying from side to side. Young Master Wei, I'm here. Where's my sword? Lin Zuna ran into Wei Yi's study, her eyes filled with anticipation. Wei Yi had sent someone to inform her today to come and get the sword, and she knew that Wei Yi had finally forged such an extraordinary sword. She was filled with excitement. It's on Lanqi, the top one, Wei Yi said, pointing to Lanqi beside him while writing. Lin Zuna's eyes lit up, and she walked over excitedly. She grabbed the top sword on Lanqi. The sword had a faint green luster, and the blade was like 3 feet of ice, sharp and unstoppable. But when she held it in her hand, she felt as if it had transformed into a green dragon. It seemed as if the moment she let go, it would soar into the sky, commanding the world. The sound would shake the heavens, echoing with thunder and lightning. The radiance surrounding it was more dazzling than the stars in the sky. If it roamed the mortal world, it could make demons disappear and evil spirits flee. The sword's will shook Lin Zuna's heart and made her blood boil. It was as if grasping this sword, one was enveloped by a righteous aura, a desire to slay all demons and evildoers, eradicate all injustice. Feeling this sword's power, Lin Zuna's heart grew even more excited. Though different from Wei Yi's heavenly sword, this sword's power was equally powerful. It perfectly matched her personality. She was inherently chivalrous and wanted to eradicate injustice and eliminate all evil. With a fiery gaze, she scrutinized the sword, its appearance and its power both remarkable. The 2 characters Chengying were engraved on the blade. This sword is truly extraordinary, young Master Wei. Is it called Chengying? Lin Zuna asked, her gaze intensely fixed on the sword in her hand. Yes, it's called Chengying. Wei Yi nodded. He took the name of this sword from a famous sword he knew in his previous life, Chengying. However, the sword's power was inspired by a poem by Yang Xiu. He excerpted a portion of that poem, imbuing the sword with a profound meaning. The sword is hidden in its case, a dark room always bright at night. To know when rain is about to fall, listen to the clang of your sword. The divine dragon is a creature. Its spirit rouses when it senses its presence. I often fear it will leap from its box, so I sometimes leave it unlocked. The brilliant 7-star pattern illuminates the 3-foot ice. This sword, in the human world, causes hundreds of demons to retreat at night. The treacherous and the flattering are terrified, their fright shattering. Try to face the stars and moon, and let the flying light shoot through your spear. This poem was originally composed by Yang Xiu, using the sword as a metaphor for himself. Despite his exceptional talent, the courage of a divine dragon, and his fervent passion, he desired to serve his country, yet found no place to use his talents. The poem embodies his intense desire and fierce will to eradicate treacherous and cunning individuals, and slay his enemies. Thus, this sword embodies the divine dragon's soaring will, and the righteous spirit of slaying demons and monsters. This sword spirit has a powerful deterrent and restraining effect on demons and monsters. Master Wei, I love this sword so much. How much is it? I want to buy it. Lin Zuna asked excitedly. This sword is priceless. Wei Yi said sternly. Huh? What do you mean? You're not going to sell it to me? Lin Zuna asked anxiously. She had waited so long, finally, for Wei Yi to forge another sword with such extraordinary sword spirit. Naturally, she didn't want to lose it. Moreover, this sword was truly extraordinary, and she loved it very much. You should also know that the extraordinary nature of this sword cannot be measured by money. Since it's priceless, I can't sell it to you. Well, that's true, but if you won't sell it to me, why did you call me here? Since it's priceless, it can only be exchanged for something priceless. For example, Lin Zuna looked at Wei Yi curiously. For example, you. Wei Yi said seriously. Hearing Wei Yi's words, Lin Zuna's face flushed instantly. She had never known what shyness was, but for the first time, she blushed, her heartbeat quickening. What do you mean? You're not going to ask me to give myself to you in exchange for your sword, are you? Although she felt a little shy, Lin Zuna's gaze remained sharp. It felt like, this girl isn't afraid of death, so why would she be afraid of giving herself to someone? What are you thinking? I don't want your skinny breasts. You're so disgusting. Lin Zuna blushed and couldn't help but grumble. But she couldn't help but look down at her own ordinary breasts and unexpectedly felt a hint of inferiority. You think I'm disgusting? Okay. I can give you this sword, but you need to promise to do 10 things for me, Wei Yi said with a smile. He wasn't short of money right now, and the sword really couldn't be valued with money. More than money, Wei Yi needed a martial arts master like Lin Zuna to work for him. At her age, she was already a 5th rank master, and her future was limitless. Using a sword in exchange for her doing 10 things for him in the future was far more valuable than money. What is it? Lin Zuna looked at Wei Yi curiously. I haven't decided yet. I'll tell you when I need it. Aren't you afraid I might go back on my word? Since I forged this sword for you, I naturally trust you. Okay, deal, but I still want to thank you, Lin Zuna said, looking at Wei Yi with a smile. She really wanted to thank Wei Yi. After all, this sword was truly priceless. If Wei Yi hadn't said that, she really didn't know what to offer in exchange. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, Changes. Lin Zuna left the Wei residence contentedly, carrying her beloved greatsword. But she didn't return home, instead heading directly to the Jingan Palace. She wanted to share this joyful news with Zhao Jinsi. When she arrived, Zhao Jinsi was writing in his study, a thick stack of papers neatly arranged on the desk. Densely written words covered the pages, mostly poems by Wei Yi. Princess, look, this is the sword young master Wei forged for me. It's called Chengying, and it's truly extraordinary. Lin Zuna excitedly held up the sword and showed it to Zhao Jinsi. Let me see. Zhao Jinsi took the sword from Lin Zuna and immediately felt its imposing aura and sword spirit. However, she wasn't surprised at all, for she already knew Wei Yi's extraordinary abilities. Yesterday, at King Feng Academy, she had also received Wei Yi's teachings and become a Confucian and Taoist practitioner. For her now, Wei Yi was not only her beloved, but also her mentor. How is it? Extraordinary, isn't it? Lin Zuna said with a look of pride. Yes, it is indeed extraordinary. This sword is probably only forged by young Master Wei. Now you finally got what you wanted. You must be happy, Zhao Jinsi said with a smile. She truly knew how much Lin Zuna had been looking forward to this day. Before, the girl had been eagerly waiting, constantly asking when Wei Yi would help her forge the sword. Her ears were almost calloused. Now that her wish had come true, she could finally rest her ears. Haha, I'll go show it to Cheyenne and Xiaolin and encourage them to practice hard. Lin Zuna, clutching the sword, ran out of the study. Zhao Jinsi smiled and immediately resumed writing. Streams of ink and brush energy continuously flowed into her sea of consciousness, blending into the forest of ink and brush. Not long after Lin Zuna left the Wei family, Su Lingyan's personal maid Lu also came to the Wei family. She said that something seemed to have happened at home, and the lady asked her to go back quickly. But Lu didn't know what it was. Su Lingyan followed Lu back home with a heavy heart. Feeling the solemn atmosphere, she couldn't help but think of the scene when her father was demoted to King's House City. Did something happen to her father again? Su Lingyan was a little worried and hurriedly asked her mother the reason. Only then did she know that her father was actually going to resign. Why is my father suddenly going to resign? Su Lingyan was a little puzzled, but her mood was even heavier. She had finally adapted to life in King's House City and made new friends here. Could it be that she had to leave her hometown again? Your father recently received an imperial edict, apparently ordering him to build a Taoist temple for the Shinran sect. You know your father already hates the Shinran sect to the core, so how could he be willing to aid them in their atrocities by building a temple? So, he was furious and decided to resign, Su Lingyan's mother said solemnly. As a wife, she naturally supported her husband's decision. But as a mother, she felt guilty towards her daughter. After all, if Su Zhe resigned, the family would be in tatters, and her daughter would undoubtedly suffer. Dad did the right thing. It doesn't matter if I don't want to serve. Anyone willing to be a dog for the Shinran sect should do it, Su Lingyan said indignantly. While she didn't want to resign, she didn't want her father to suffer humiliation even more. Although she was only a young girl, she shared her father's integrity and temper. She was also very understanding and knew that her father's choice was the right one. Su Lingyan's words surprised her mother. She didn't expect Su Lingyan to resist at all, but to support her father's decision. The last time Su Zhe was banished here, Su Lingyan had been making a fuss for quite a while. It seemed she had truly grown up and become sensible. But mother, can we not leave King's House City? Su Lingyan changed the subject. She no longer wanted to leave here. As long as she could stay, being a commoner's daughter was fine. That depends on what your father plans to do next. Is my father in the study? I'll go see him. Yes, but it's best not to disturb him right now. Let him be alone. Su Lingyan ignored her mother's advice and immediately ran to the study, knocking on the door. Dad, I'm coming in. Lingyan, what can I do? Su Zhe was standing by the wall, gazing at the calligraphy hanging on it. There will be a time to ride the wind and waves and set sail to cross the vast ocean. Dad, why don't you go to King Feng Academy and become a teacher? That way, I can visit the academy more often. Su Lingyan said with a grin. Su Zhe faltered upon hearing Su Lingyan's words. He immediately turned to look at her, his expression somewhat complicated. Father, with your talent and knowledge, you're more than qualified to be a teacher. Besides, you and Master Du are close friends, so working together would be even more enjoyable. A faint smile crossed Su Zhe's heavy face at Su Lingyan's words. He had, in fact, been harboring this very thought. News of Su Zhe's resignation and the Shinran sect's plan to build a Taoist temple within King's House City quickly spread throughout the city, casting a pall of gloom over the city. This imperial decree not only tasked Su Zhe with building the temple for the Shinran sect, but also ordered him to collect incense and offerings from merchants and civilians throughout the city to fund the temple's construction. Those who could not contribute would be forced to perform corvée labor to help build the temple. A few days later, Su Zhe's resignation was approved, and his family moved from the county government office to King Feng Academy. Su Zhe officially became a teacher at King Feng Academy. Although he no longer held an official position, the academy offered him a salary higher than his salary as a county magistrate. This delighted Su Lingyan and her mother. However, Su Zhe was far from happy. He knew that a broken nest could not hold its own. If the Shinran cult entered King's House City, the entire city would be plunged into darkness. Although King Feng Academy was founded by Prince Jingan, the Shinran cult would not dare to attack it lightly. However, the Wei family was the largest financial backer behind King Feng Academy. Most of its expenses were currently supported by the Wei family. Given the Shinran cult's practices, the Wei family's assets would likely be severely impacted. Without the Wei family's financial support, King Feng Academy would face difficulties. After Su Zhe's family moved to the academy, Wei Yi made a special trip to visit Su Zhe. Su Zhe shared his concerns with Wei Yi and Du Shaoling. And I heard from Lord Li that the Ministry of Revenue also issued a notice yesterday to establish a Chamber of Commerce in King's House City. They designated Wang Yanchang as president, abolishing the position of head guild leader, and placing all guilds directly under the leadership of the Chamber of Commerce president. Lord Li is suppressing this information for now, but I don't think he can hold off for much longer. Once the Chamber of Commerce is established, businesses in this city will likely suffer once again. I didn't expect the Wan family to be connected to the Shinran cult, Du Xiaoling said in a deep voice. He wasn't surprised at all by the establishment of the Chamber of Commerce. This was a precedent in other areas controlled by the Shinran cult. The Chamber of Commerce was simply a way for the Shinran cult to exploit the city's merchants. He just didn't expect the person working as a pawn for the Shinran cult to be Wan Yunchang. In that case, we can only fight back, Wei Yi said in a deep voice. While this news was unexpected, it also made sense. No wonder Shachen had told him not to attack the Wan family until he was absolutely certain. It turns out the Wan family has the backing of the Shinran sect. Wei Yi knew full well that the Shinran sect couldn't have been a last-minute selection, but rather a pre-existing close relationship. After all, the position of Chamber of Commerce president was crucial, so they naturally wanted someone they could trust. But now that things have come to this, let's settle old and new grudges together. Thanks to Bubu, the food lover, for the 1866 book coins. Thank you all for your monthly votes. Chapter 110 Master's Breath. After returning home from King Feng Academy, Wei Yi immediately began writing furiously, honing his calligraphy skills. After all his hard work, his calligraphy skills were on the verge of advancing. He estimated that, if he continued writing frantically for an hour today, he could earn the last bit of experience in his calligraphy skills. Furthermore, the day before yesterday, Wei Yi had already taken the lead in reaching the 4th level of his fitness skills. This upgrade had once again transformed his body, granting him a formidable physique of steel. While his skin appeared unchanged, its toughness rivaled that of steel. Ordinary swords and knives could do nothing to injure it, and it possessed a remarkable healing ability. His bones, like iron, were also incredibly strong. His strength had increased from the power of 3 tripods to the power of an elephant. In other words, his strength had increased from 3,000 kilograms to 12,500 kilograms. As far as Wei Yi knew, this was practically the ultimate strength of a 7th grade warrior. Of course, in addition to this significant increase in strength, Wei Yi's innate physique and lifespan had also been significantly enhanced. His lifespan had now reached 120 years, multiplying several times over. His physique had also risen from average to excellent. Furthermore, his 5 senses had also been significantly enhanced. At his desk, Wei Yi's right hand, like a printer, swiftly wrote densely on the paper. His hand was so fast it left traces of afterimages. Looking closely, each character on the paper was incredibly small, yet the strokes were crystal clear, every detail visible. He only needed to dip the ink once to complete a whole chapter. His control over the ink reaching the pinnacle, Juzi crouched on the windowsill, intently observing Wei Yi's right hand. His eyes followed Wei Yi's hand speed, his head shaking violently as if on vibrator. Although Wei Yi wrote furiously, churning out thousands of words in a single breath, to him, it was still one word at a time, and he could clearly see every stroke. This was due to the aura of the brush and ink that enhanced his reaction speed. Sir, the storyteller requests an audience. The maidservant Xiaohe's voice suddenly rang out from outside the door. Wei Yi paused, walked to a nearby bookshelf, and took down a bound volume. It was his copy of the novel collection Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio. Come in, Wei Yi said. The door opened, and a middle-aged scholar entered. Standing at the doorway, he bowed and said, Sir, I'm here to receive the 2nd volume of Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio. Yes, here it is. Wei Yi handed the book to the storyteller, who then returned the 1st volume to Wei Yi. Some time ago, Wei Yi began adding storytelling services to his restaurants and taverns. During off-peak hours, he would have the storyteller tell stories from Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio. These stories kept the restaurant and tavern packed almost all day long. They also increased customer retention, further boosting sales for the restaurant and tavern. After all, many people flocked to the restaurant daily just to hear the stories, eating and drinking, never stopping. And Wei Yi discovered that these stories could also help him attain the golden light. After the storyteller left with the 2nd volume of Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, Wei Yi resumed his grind on his calligraphy skill. After about an hour, Wei Yi finally reached maximum proficiency in his calligraphy skill. But he didn't rush to level up immediately, continuing to work on his writing skill, figuring it wouldn't be too late to level up again at night before bed. After dinner, Wei Yi was about to return to his study to paint some more, when a servant arrived to announce that Miss Liu of Hongxiuzao had a new dance rehearsal, and wanted him to see it. Wei Yi remained expressionless, but a moment of thought crossed his mind. Miss Liu's sudden invitation to see a dance might mean the Xiangsha Alliance had something to communicate with him. So he nodded and said, "Okay, tell them I'll be there later." Wei Yi changed into a brocade dress, adjusted his appearance, packed a scroll, and rode to Hongxiuzao. Upon arriving at Hongxiuzao, Wei Yi once again caused quite a stir. Numerous guests came to greet him. Besides the literary admirers, many martial artists also appeared. Liu personally came downstairs to greet him, explaining that she had choreographed a dance specifically for Wei Yi. This filled the other guests with envy, and they were eager to join Liu in the private room to admire her new dance. In front of everyone, Wei Yi presented Liu with a scroll he had brought as a gift of gratitude. Wei Yi followed Liu to the private room. Meanwhile, the green-clad girl, who had just emerged upon hearing the news, studied Wei Yi with interest, carefully inhaling his aura, which drew her in and comforted her. If her senior sister hadn't forbidden her, she would have secretly sneaked into the Wei residence to discover the true power within him. But just as she was captivated by Wei Yi's aura, her expression suddenly changed, her brows furrowed, and a look of surprise crossed her eyes. How could he have Master's aura? The green-clad girl was surprised, and immediately sensed it again. She confirmed she wasn't mistaken. It was indeed her Master's aura, albeit very faint. What on earth happened? How could he have my Master's aura? The green-clad girl's face was filled with astonishment, her mind boggling. Seeing Wei Yi enter Liu's private room, the green-clad girl quickly returned to her own and told the purple-clad woman what she had just discovered. "Are you sure you didn't sense it wrong?" The purple-clad woman was equally surprised. "Of course not, I'm absolutely sure," the green-clad girl said firmly. "Senior sister, do you think Master and this Wei Yi did something?" the green-clad girl suddenly asked. She couldn't help but imagine some inappropriate things. After all, her master was a great beauty, and Wei Yi was equally handsome, exuding an aura that made her want to be close. Most importantly, he possessed a very strong and masculine constitution. Master had been infected with a cold poison years ago and had never recovered. This extremely strong and yang body might have some effect on suppressing the cold poison, so Master and Wei Yi. But if Master had already arrived in King's House City, why didn't he come to find them? Don't speculate. Master wouldn't do that. You must have seen it wrong. Last time, you said he exuded an aura that made you want to be close, and this time it's Master's aura. You must have neglected your training recently, and your skills have declined. The woman in the purple dress said angrily. That's not the case. If you don't believe me, I'll go investigate tonight. I must find out what's going on, the girl in the green dress said with a determined look. Chapter 111 next time. After Liu invited Wei Yi to a private room, they first admired a painting Wei Yi had given her. It was a beautiful painting of a mythical bird, draped in colorful feathers, radiating a dazzling glow. Its spirit was radiant, noble, and beautiful. Its presence was so vivid and lifelike, as if it were about to fly out of the painting, a truly extraordinary sight. Naturally, Liu was delighted by the painting, especially since it was Wei Yi's work. Deeply impressed, she expressed her gratitude again, and hung the painting in her room. The two then drank, chatted, and composed poetry. After a long chat, Liu changed into a dress, preparing to perform a newly choreographed dance for Wei Yi. After a long pause, musicians behind the screen began playing. Accompanied by the melodious music, Liu emerged from behind the screen, like a beauty from the Dunhuang murals. Her upper body was covered only by a tube top, revealing her shoulders, arms, and slender waist. A red gauze shawl swirled around her arms, fluttering with her dance. A high-slit long skirt opened and closed with her movements, revealing her beautiful legs, captivating her heart. Her movements were graceful and enchanting, as if every inch of her body were dancing. Her long black hair fluttered, her rounded bodice danced, and the sash of her skirt fluttered. It was as if Wei Yi's heart was dancing along. Wei Yi's eyes were blazing, his gaze alight with ecstasy. The scene was truly a sight to behold, a scene of springtime, a scene so breathtaking it was almost too beautiful to take in. This scene was far more beautiful than the dancing ladies in his previous life's short videos. Not only were they beautiful, but their dancing was incomparable. And many of the scenes probably wouldn't pass muster. The most important thing was authenticity, a tangible feeling. Especially when Liu Ru arrived mid-dance, she arrived beside him. Her graceful soft body danced around Wei Yi, filling his face with a fragrant breeze, like a spring breeze caressing a field of flowers, a truly delightful scent. The light gauze, carrying a hint of warmth, brushed against Wei Yi's body, stirring his heart. Wei Yi was aroused by Liu Ru's dance. He wondered if Liu Ru had invited him here tonight not to exchange information, but simply to enjoy her paid performance. Otherwise, after this dance, mere verbal communication would be insufficient to satisfy his physical and mental needs. He feared the only way was to return the favor, sharing what he had with her. After the dance, Liu Ru's graceful steps came over on the fragrant breeze. Her body, soft and fragrant like jade, gently rested beside Wei Yi. With a charming smile, she asked, "Young Master Wei, do you like this dance?" Wei Yi nodded, smiled, and said, "As graceful as a swan, her figure dances gracefully against the clouds. As graceful as a snowflake. Just one glance, and you'll captivate the whole nation." Hearing Wei Yi's poem, Liu Ru's heart naturally leaped. Her gaze towards Wei Yi grew even more captivated, more adoring. A faint commotion emanated from behind the screen, a faint whisper. "Thank you, young master, for the poem. I'm flattered." Liu Ru quickly stood and bowed. "No need for formalities," Wei Yi offered, helping her to her feet. "I need to speak with young master Wei. You may leave first," Liu Ru said to the musicians behind the screen. "Yes." The musicians left the private room and closed the door. Liu Ru raised her glass again. "I offer you a toast. I have nothing to repay your poem. I will dance for you later." "Okay." Wei Yi smiled faintly, naturally not refusing. Such a beauty, such a captivating dance, the more the better. After finishing her glass of wine, Liu Ru glanced at the door. Then, still talking, she passed through the doorway and circled the private room. She then returned to Wei Yi's side, a completely different person, her expression serious, her gaze dignified. She whispered, "Sir, you should already know my identity, right?" Wei Yi nodded, his expression growing serious. Clearly, his suspicions were correct. Liu Ru had indeed called him here for something. "Sir, the One family is a pawn of the celestial being cult. Shachen has already arranged for an attack on the One family tomorrow night, to eliminate this celestial being cult scoundrel first." Then, Liu Ru suddenly spoke aloud. "Sir, could you please help me write down the poem I just wrote?" "Yes," Wei Yi replied in a mock, clear voice. "Bring me pen and ink." Liu Ru fetched pen, inkstone, and paper, then continued. "Shachen says the celestial being cult might also come after you, demanding your submission. After all, you're quite famous now. If they come to King's House City, they'll definitely come looking for you. But you don't have to pay any attention to them, and don't worry about them taking action against you. We at the Xiangsha Alliance will secretly protect you." Wei Yi nodded, and immediately wrote down the poem on paper. "Tell Shachen if there's anything I can help you with, just let him know," Wei Yi whispered. "Thank you, sir, for the writing," Liu Ru said loudly, nodding at Wei Yi. Then, suddenly leaning close to Wei Yi's ear, she placed her delicate hand on his shoulder and said charmingly, "Since you already know my identity, why don't you stay tonight?" Wei Yi took in Liu Ru's alluring face and her eager gaze, thinking to himself, "This girl is really using her power for personal gain, coveting my body." However, as a man of youthful vigor and perseverance, facing such a stunning beauty, he naturally wanted to experience her more deeply. He might even unlock new daily skills. So, he slipped his arm around Liu Ru's slender boneless waist. It felt slightly cool to the touch, then soft, delicate, and smooth. Admittedly, that waist must be quite demanding on the kidneys. "Not tonight, but next time," Wei Yi said with a smile. After all, he was in a hurry to upgrade his writing skills tonight. so he'd have to wait. A long time later, Wei Yi, accompanied by Liu Ru, left the private room. Word of Wei Yi's recent gift of poetry spread throughout Hangxia's Heio. Everyone had assumed Wei Yi would stay the night, but they were surprised he'd leave. They couldn't help but sigh at how different people were. They seemed to care nothing for the things they longed for. Liu Ru's expression made it clear that Wei Yi had whetted her appetite. She feared she would be alone tonight, unable to sleep. Unfortunately, even then, it wouldn't be her turn. After leaving Hangxia's Heio, Wei Yi boarded a carriage and headed home. In the darkness, a graceful green figure quietly followed. But before they had gone far, 2 men in black blocked the girl's path. "Miss, it's late, and the city isn't safe. You'd better return quickly," one of them said. The girl looked at the 2 men before her. They were both highly skilled. Even if they combined, they couldn't do anything to her. But now that their whereabouts had been discovered, they had clearly alerted the enemy. It is definitely impossible to approach him secretly. In this case, I should find an opportunity to visit him directly and ask him clearly. After all, Wei Yi is not a bad person. I just came out for a walk. Thank you for your reminder. The girl in green bowed. Then she turned around and disappeared into the night again. Thank you to Digital Book Friend 151 for awarding 100 starting coins, and thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 112. Paper Talk. Subscribe. Watching the green-clad girl leave, the 2 men in black whispered to each other. She looks like a cultivator. Could she be from the Celestial Cult? Possibly. I didn't expect the Celestial Cult to have spies within Hangxia's Heio. Will she notice anything? Probably not. Let's have someone keep an eye on it, and warn Liu Ru to be careful. Okay. With that, the 2 figures vanished into the night again. But they didn't notice a ginger cat hiding in a corner not far away. Its eyes gleamed with brilliance, and then it vanished in a flash. Wei Yi, in the carriage, had his eyes closed, seemingly asleep, yet he had taken in everything that had just happened. Sure enough, the Xiangxia Alliance was secretly protecting him. But who was that green-clad girl, and why was she following him? Could she really be from the Celestial Cult? Hangxia's Heio wasn't safe, after all. Fortunately, he had kept his younger brother under control and didn't stay there overnight. It wasn't yet midnight when Wei Yi returned home, so he took a hot bath and spent another hour working on his calligraphy skills before going to bed. Before falling asleep, he thought, and his calligraphy skills began to level up, advancing from level 5 to level 6. A familiar feeling washed over him, and Wei Yi felt his consciousness automatically enter his sea of consciousness once again. Under the blazing golden sun, an endless forest of ink and brush teemed with vitality and lush greenery. Yet, in a trance, Wei Yi imagined that countless forests of ink and brush transformed into a vast army, a sea of people. But soon, his consciousness, flooded with information, sank into a mystical state. As the sky turned pale, Wei Yi opened his eyes. Rays of light shone forth, and his eyes seemed brighter, deeper, and more composed. Wei Yi felt as if he hadn't slept all night, remaining in that mystical state, as if his soul had undergone some unknown transformation. Countless pieces of information had long since been digested and integrated into his memory. Upon waking, he felt incredibly energetic, perhaps even more so than ever before. His mind was clear, his senses sharp, and everything around him seemed to take on a new dimension of color. Subtle details previously invisible now seemed to escape his gaze. However, what made Wei Yi most delighted was the magical power he gained from this upgrade. Paper Talk. This power allowed him to summon the spirits of heroes who had been praised for centuries upon their death, by writing them on paper. These spirits were the souls of revered individuals whose achievements had made them legends, and even objects of worship and devotion. These spirits, transformed into heroic figures, possessed extraordinary powers. For example, Wei Yi could evoke the legendary heroes of his past life, such as Jinke, Xiang Yu, and Guan Yu. By aligning his brush and ink with the golden light, he could compose poems praising them on paper, summoning their spirits to this world within a short period of time. He could also use the painting power leaping onto paper to draw heroes and have them materialize. But that was merely a figment of the imagination, conjured by the energy of ink and brush, possessing no inherent mysteries or powers. Empty talk. However, summoned true heroic spirits. Their souls condensed the reverence and faith of countless people over countless years, blended with the poetic spirits of poetry, transforming them into spirits. For example, Wei Yi's most vivid memory was the poem Song of Jinke. The wind whistles, the Yi river chills, the hero departs, never to return. Exploring the tiger's den, entering the dragon's palace, looking up to the sky, his breath becomes a white rainbow. He could use this poem to summon Jinke's spirit, to aid him in assassination missions. Although Jinke's assassination attempt on the King of Qin failed during his lifetime, that didn't mean he was incapable of it. The reasons for this were perhaps best understood by him. Some say his companions on the mission were so frightened that they pissed themselves on the spot. Consequently, Jinke had to temporarily change his strategy and act alone, resulting in his failure. Others say he didn't intend to kill the King of Qin, but rather hoped to capture him alive to coerce him. Otherwise the king's life would be in jeopardy. Regardless, Jinke was chosen to carry out this arduous mission. He was undoubtedly incredibly brave, possessed unparalleled swordsmanship, and was a master of assassination. Therefore, summoning Jinke's spirit to carry out assassination missions was a natural fit. Furthermore, the summoned spirit could also communicate with one's mind. It could even be hidden within poetry, waiting for the right moment to materialize. This would truly reveal the true purpose and deliver a single decisive blow. Of course, Wei Yi knew more than just this one poem. There were also poems about Qin Shi Huang, Xiang Yu, Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, Hua Mulan, and more. Perhaps I can use this magical power to secretly aid the Xiangsha alliance tonight, Wei Yi thought. According to Liu Ru's intelligence, the Xiangsha alliance would attack Wan Yanchang tonight. While Wei Yi knew the Xiangsha alliance's victory was almost certain, he could also offer covert assistance, providing an additional layer of security and potentially eliminating one's eye along the way. Impatient at this thought, Wei Yi immediately dressed and headed to his study to begin his research. He immediately grasped the brush, dipped it in ink, and wrote, simultaneously channeling the energy of the ink and the golden light, converging upon the tip of the brush. As he finished writing Song of Jinke, Wei Yi felt the words on the paper shimmer with golden light. The words seemed to fly from the paper, swelling in the void before him. Transformed into countless golden rays, the outline of a figure slowly emerged. Simultaneously, the surrounding space seemed to warp slightly, and the sound of countless recitations echoed in Wei Yi's ears. The voices were male and female, young and old, with varying accents and pronunciations. They seemed to come from eons, condensed from countless voices across countless years. The voice shook Wei Yi to the core, filling him with awe. Then, within the golden light, a figure slowly emerged, exuding an awe-inspiring aura, like a god descending to earth. It brought a powerful sense of pressure. But when the golden light dissipated, an ordinary man appeared in front of Wei Yi. Wei Yi couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. This man's appearance was not outstanding, even very ordinary. Judging from his appearance alone, there was not a trace of the heroic spirit and demeanor he had imagined. Although Wei Yi had heard many stories about Jinke and watched many of his film and television works, he didn't know what the real Jinke looked like. But now he had seen it with his own eyes. As expected, not all heroes are handsome and powerful. However, although Jinke looked ordinary, he condensed a strong aura and will, which made him still give people an invisible sense of pressure and sharpness. Perhaps this is the power of worship and faith of future generations over countless years. It was also this poem that gave him a special magic. Chapter 113 I feel I can do it again. Each heroic spirit summoned by Wei Yi could only exist in this world for a maximum of 12 hours. While heroic spirits couldn't speak, they could communicate with Wei Yi telepathically. Therefore, upon the appearance of Jinke's heroic spirit, it quickly understood what had happened and the purpose of Wei Yi's summoning. He looked at Wei Yi and nodded, then emitted a white rainbow, transforming into a sharp sword. A surge of murderous intent surged, and his entire aura underwent a drastic change. It was as if he had transformed from an honest ordinary man into a terrifying killer, a lone hero commanding awe. Naturally, he also instantly understood Jinke's abilities. As a heroic spirit, he was no longer just an ordinary swordsman. Instead, he possessed extraordinary strength and numerous unparalleled abilities. Furthermore, The heroic spirit Wei Yi summoned wasn't fully formed. Its maximum capabilities depended entirely on Wei Yi's level within the Forest of Ink. The higher the level within the Forest of Ink, the greater the heroic spirit's combat power. With a thought, Wei Yi's spirit transformed into a faint glow, merging into the poem Song of Jinke and vanishing. Then, Wei Yi inscribed on the paper with remarkable precision, Jinke will spontaneously combust after his departure. Afterward, Wei Yi folded the paper and put it away, preparing for an experiment tonight. After breakfast, Wei Yi continued to work on his fitness skills in the training room. However, he secretly sent Juzi to infiltrate the Wan family, monitor their movements, and track Wan Yinchang. Meanwhile, Wan Yinchang sat in his living room, a smug expression on his face. He sipped tea alone, observing the fawning and obsequious shopkeepers below him, and the gifts they had brought him. This morning, he had successfully obtained the official document from the Ministry of Revenue, becoming the president of the Kingshow City Chamber of Commerce. This marked the end of the Wan family's days of silence. Wan Yinchang was poised to once again ascend the throne of Kingshow City's commerce, becoming the true uncrowned king. From now on, the entire business of Kingshow City will belong to his Wan family, and no one can shake his Wan family's position. No one will dare to be an enemy of the Wan family. Those guys who have opposed him and betrayed him, he will deal with them one by one this time. Especially the Meng family and the Wei family. Moreover, not long ago, Wan Zai had brought people from the mansion with documents, issued by the Ministry of Households to notify all the merchants and guilds in the city, to come to his Wan family's Tinglan Tea House for a meeting. He was preparing to officially announce the establishment of the Kingshow City Chamber of Commerce and his position as the president. Now that Su Zhe has also resigned, the Shinran sect will soon arrange for officials from their own party to take up the position. The power of the Shinran sect will also officially enter Kingshow City. With this backing, in the future Kingshow City will truly become the world of his Wan family, and no one can compete. Let's just say it. Sooner or later, this Kingshow City will belong to Master Wan. No, it's Chairman Wan. What do you mean by sooner or later? It's always been that way. Chairman Wan is just biding his time, letting those clowns run wild for a few days. Haha, that's right. How can those young brats compare to our Chairman Wan? What does it mean to be strategic and foresighted? Yes, from now on, we swear to follow Chairman Wan to the death, with no second thoughts. That's right, that's right. From now on, we will follow Chairman Wan's lead. The wealthy merchants who had once been in cahoots with the Wan family flattered their loyalty. Alright, all of you go help notify everyone to come to the Tinglan Tea House for a meeting. Wan Yinchang waved his hand. He knew these people were cunning and opportunistic, but if he wanted to completely dominate Kingshow City's commerce, he needed help. Those who had once followed him were more reliable than others. Yes, we'll go now. Then we'll take our leave. The shopkeepers all stood up, bowed, and left the hall. Inside the main restaurant of Xiangmen Lao, a girl in green wandered around, admiring the paintings and poems on the walls. During her time in Kingshow City, she had heard so much about Wei Yi, Xiangmen Lao, and Lanling Wine. This was her first time to personally explore the area. Although she didn't know much about poetry, calligraphy, and painting, she still thought Wei Yi's calligraphy and poetry were impressive. Furthermore, business at Xiangmen Lao was booming. Even though it wasn't lunchtime, the restaurant was packed. From the conversation, everyone seemed to be anticipating the storyteller's arrival. And from what they were discussing, it seemed like they were all embracing the love story between a human and a fox demon. This piqued the girl's interest, and she wanted to hear what kind of story the storyteller had to tell. Soon, the storyteller arrived at the restaurant, and everyone was instantly excited. As the storyteller clashed his gavel, the restaurant fell silent. He continued with yesterday's story, his voice full of emotion and vividness. He even employed various ventriloquism techniques, making the audience feel as if they were there, their hearts rising and falling along with the story. They were completely immersed in his tale, filled with surprise, joy, sorrow, and pain. The girl in green also listened intently to the storyteller's tale, her beautiful eyes also shimmering with a complex brilliance, and she was even more astonished. She had not expected that the story told in the restaurant was truly a love story between a human and a fox demon. and unlike other stories that simply vilified demons, portraying them as man-eating monsters, harmful spirits, ugly, terrifying, heartless, and cruel, in short, as if all bad things were attributed to demons. The fox demon in this story, however, was portrayed as loyal and devoted, grateful, kind, and gentle. This was similar to the story of her master and many of her companions. Moreover, in her opinion, the hearts of demons are sometimes purer and simpler than those of humans. The most complex, sinister, and unpredictable thing in this world is, in fact, the human heart. Indeed, many powerful demons exist in reality, killing and cannibalizing humans, wreaking havoc on their people. But humans, vying for resources, kill and injure tens, even hundreds, of thousands in a single war, devastating the land, and leaving rivers of blood. They often burn, plunder, and commit all manner of atrocities against their enemies. In true comparison, those devastating demons are nothing more than a drop in the bucket. Therefore, both humans and demons possess both good and evil, and cannot be lumped together. Hearing this story brought the girl in green great joy. Sure enough, there are still some humans who understand and appreciate them, and the rapt attention those around her showed that they weren't all hostile or fearful of demons. They also harbored many beautiful aspirations and hopes. They were even willing to believe that there were good among the demons. As the storyteller's tale unfolded, the story unfolded with twists and turns, a lingering love story. It also deeply moved the girl in green, making her completely immersed in it, and her eyes unconsciously became moist. Chapter 114, Digging Your Own Grave. After finishing a story, the storyteller went to the side to relax with tea. The customers in the inn were still engrossed in the tale, still wanting more, and engaged in a flurry of discussion. A young woman in green approached the storyteller, bowed, and asked, "Sir, may I ask who wrote your story?" The storyteller smiled and replied, "Of course, it was young Master Wei, the foremost talent in King's House City and the owner of Xiangmen Lao. It's really Wei Yi." The young woman in green was delighted, her eyes sparkling with joy. She had vaguely suspected something, and now, with a positive answer, her suspicions were reinforced. This Wei Yi must have adapted his own experiences into a story. It seemed her suspicion that day was correct. He and her master might indeed have had a past relationship, or perhaps a rekindling of their past relationship. Perhaps this was why he exuded the master's aura. It turned out that the person her master had been obsessed with was this young Master Wei. But that relationship had happened 1,000 years ago. Could it be that young Master Wei had also lived for 1,000 years? No, if he'd lived, Master wouldn't be in so much pain. It seems he's a reincarnation. The green-clad girl speculated wildly. The more she thought, the more this possibility seemed to her. This young Master Wei was so extraordinary, he must be no ordinary person. But the only thing she couldn't understand was why, since Master had already been to King's House City, he hadn't come to see them. And why had he allowed them to stay here without even telling them the reason? Never mind, Master must have her reasons, the green-clad girl thought. But her interest in Wei Yi grew even stronger. After I finish the story, I'll go visit him, the green-clad girl decided. The storyteller paused for a moment before resuming the story. However, just as the story reached its most gripping point, a loud noise interrupted the storyteller, and several figures entered the doorway. Leading them was none other than Wan Zai. "Stop! You're not welcome in this establishment," Meng Shulian shouted sharply. At the same time, the shop assistants rushed over, blocking Wan Zai and the others, glaring at them angrily. "What are you doing? Are you still thinking of getting into trouble?" Wan Zai shouted. He then raised the document in his hand and shouted, "Open your eyes and read this. This is a document from the Ministry of Revenue. From now on, my father will be the president of the King's House City Chamber of Commerce. All guilds and businesses in King's House City will be under his control. I'm hereby ordered by the Ministry of Revenue to notify all of you restaurant owners to immediately report to Tinglan Tea House and be on standby." Upon hearing Wan Zai's words, the shop assistants' faces darkened. They glanced at each other, finally looking at Meng Shulian. Meng Shulian had naturally learned of this from Wei Yi and was prepared. So, she showed no surprise, nor did she take it to heart. Now, with Wei Yi as her solid support, she no longer felt any fear. Instead, she found Wan Zai's triumphant behavior rather foolish. Give me the document. Meng Shulian snatched it from Wan Zai's hand and took a look. Wan Zai was annoyed by Meng Shulian's composure, so he sneered and added, Meng Shulian, you didn't expect that, but things can change. You'll fall into the hands of the Wan family again. This time, I won't let you stand a chance. Your Xiangman Lao is almost finished, and as for you, this young master will definitely want you. Before Wan Zai could finish his words, a slap emanating from concentrated magical power struck him directly in the face. He was sent flying out the doorway, his body performing a difficult 1800-degree spin in the air, before landing face down on the street outside, causing passers-by to gasp in surprise. His face instantly swelled like a pig's head, blood gushed from his nose and mouth, and several teeth were knocked out. He fainted on the spot. Who? Wan Zai's followers drew their swords and shouted fiercely. They scanned the people in the restaurant, unable to determine who had struck. But at that moment, the green-clad girl stood up, her face obscured by a green veil. I hate noisy people, she said coldly. Then, like a lotus blossoming beneath her feet, she approached the sword-wielding men at the door. Seeing the green-clad girl approach, the men's faces grew nervous, and they stepped back. But the green-clad girl sneered, and with a flick of her hand, a flash of brilliance sent the men reeling. Then, with a series of thuds, they were sent flying, one after another, one after the other, crashing down upon Wan Zai. This frightened the onlookers outside, who took a few steps back. Thank you for your help, young lady. Meng Shulian clasped her fists in gratitude. You're welcome, I'm simply annoyed by them, the green-clad girl said, and she returned to her seat. The surrounding guests immediately cast admiring glances. This girl is amazing. That's magic. This girl is a cultivator. So she's a cultivator. So impressive. Well done. This Wan family is really overestimating their abilities. Okay, the flies are gone. Sir, please continue, the green-clad girl said, looking at the storyteller. The storyteller was stunned for a moment, before coming to his senses, and quickly said with a smile, okay, let's continue. Meng Shulian smiled faintly, then took the document, and walked out the door, dropping it beside Wan Zai and the others. Inside the Tinglin tea house, Wan Yinchang had already arrived, sitting at the head table, sipping tea. The tea house was crowded, with most of the city's merchants gathered. Some were whispering, but many more had gloomy faces, their moods bleak. The thing they least wanted to see had happened. The Wan family had indeed made a comeback, and now the Ministry of Revenue had introduced a Chamber of Commerce system. This was clearly intended to give the Wan family complete control over King's House City's commerce. Their future was bound to be difficult. Perhaps the Wan family would devour them completely. However, some of them still held on to a glimmer of hope and fantasy. It was to see if Wei Yi could triumph once again in this contest. To once again turn the tide, reverse the situation, and create a miracle. Master, this is bad. Master, this is bad. One of Wan Zai's followers ran into the tea house in panic, causing an immediate commotion. What's going on? Why are you so panicked? Wan Yinchang shouted, his face sullen. He was about to be announced as the Chamber of Commerce president, and he was yelling about this. Wasn't that a curse on him? Master, the young master was beaten up in Xiangman Lao. At these words, Wan Yinchang's expression instantly grew even colder, and everyone present murmured. Meanwhile, several followers carried Wan Zai into the tea house. Wan Yinchang rushed forward to check, almost failing to recognize his son. The others on the side also looked, their expressions varied. The merchants who had held high hopes for Wei Yi suppressed their laughter, their anticipation for him only growing stronger. The Wei family was truly audacious, having beaten Wan Zai to a pulp. Wei Yi is so audacious. He actually seriously injured my son. Come, get someone to destroy Xiangman Lao immediately. Wan Yinchang roared. Master, calm down. The attacker is a guest of the restaurant. She's incredibly powerful. I'm afraid we are no match for her. An attendant said. Yes, master. That woman is a cultivator. Her cultivation is truly remarkable. We can't do anything to her. Another attendant echoed. Cultivator? Wan Yinchang's arrogance instantly extinguished, his heart sinking. If it was a cultivator who had attacked, he absolutely couldn't act rashly or risk death. This cultivator was not someone to be trifled with. It seemed he had to take a long-term approach. and enlist the help of the Shinran sect. First, get Zai to the doctor. Then, have someone keep an eye on Xiangman Lao. Once the cultivator leaves, notify me and report to the authorities. Wang Yinchang said sullenly, his aura completely gone. He even felt completely humiliated. He had originally intended to show off his power in front of these people today, to show them who was the boss of King's House City. Unexpectedly, before he could even establish his authority, the Wan family received a slap in the face. Chapter 115. They are all queuing up. Wei Yi, having gathered experience at home, naturally knew what had happened at the restaurant. He hadn't expected another expert to arrive and help him deal with Wan's eye without him having to do anything. It's true that those who do evil will eventually perish, and only by accumulating good karma can one gain support. However, the servant's description of the green-clad girl reminded Wei Yi of the woman who had followed him last night, so he personally went to Xiangman Lao to identify the person who had just attacked him. To his surprise, it was indeed the same green-clad woman from last night. Couldn't she be a member of the Shinran sect? Wei Yi wondered. If she were, she wouldn't have attacked Wan's eye just now. But why would she be following him, and now at Xiangman Lao? Wei Yi pondered. But just then, the black bad jade pendant he wore seemed to move. Wei Yi covered the black bad jade pendant with his hand, startled, and looked at the green-clad girl again. This person's background seems unusual. Wei Yi suddenly thought of Taoist Master Yipin. Speculating that this young woman might be related to Taoist Master Yipin, Wei Yi wanted to thank the woman in green. However, seeing she was absorbed in the story, he didn't bother to interrupt. Instead, he waited until the story concluded, and the storyteller slammed the gavel before approaching her. He bowed and said with a smile, "I'm Wei Yi, the owner of Xiangman Lao. Thank you for your assistance just now. Mr. Wei, you are so polite. Owner Meng has already thanked me and given me some delicious dishes. I was just annoyed with those people," the green-clad woman said gracefully. But the urge to be close to Wei Yi grew stronger. It was as if another soul longed to nestle in Wei Yi's arms, to enjoy his touch and his affection. The feeling was strange. Furthermore, now so close, she could even more clearly sense the presence of her master in Wei Yi. "Young lady, I think we met last night, didn't we?" Wei Yi asked again, a kind smile on his face. "Well, I apologize for any offense I caused last night. I hope you will forgive me, young master. I didn't mean to offend you, but I was curious about you, so I followed you out. Actually, I came here today hoping to apologize to you in person," the green-clad girl said sternly. "It's alright, young lady, don't worry about it. It's just that the city is unsafe right now, so I have to be extra cautious." "I understand. Young master, you really need to be extra cautious to prevent any evildoers from causing trouble. By the way, may I know your name?" "Just call me Xiaoli. Miss Xiaoli, I've got that in mind." "Young Master Wei, I heard the storyteller told was written by you. Could this be your personal experience? Otherwise, how could it be so heartfelt and touching?" Xiaoli asked. "Excuse me, young lady. It's certainly not my experience. I just heard it and adapted it for your enjoyment," Wei Yi said with a smile. "Oh, I see." Xiaoli nodded, slightly disappointed. But then she thought, perhaps her question was a bit abrupt. Even if someone had experienced it firsthand, they might not tell me about it. Regardless, Wei Yi was definitely unusual. He undoubtedly possessed extraordinary experiences. Would Xiaoli be honored to visit the young master's residence? Xiaoli asked again. She wanted to visit Wei Yi's home and ask him about her master. It would be an honor. Wei Yi smiled. He immediately invited Xiaoli to his living room and had the maid make a pot of fine tea. Upon arriving at the Wei residence, Xiaoli was surprised to see the cats filling the yard. Upon inquiring, she learned that they were all strays Wei Yi had adopted. Her opinion of Wei Yi shifted again. She became even more certain that the stories Wei Yi wrote were his own personal experiences. He must have had a deep and lasting love for the demon race, which only evoked such compassion for these intelligent creatures. Otherwise, why would he adopt so many stray cats? After all, in this world, even the most kindred person wouldn't care for a group of stray cats, let alone provide them with food and shelter. This was beyond kindness. It must be due to some experience, some special complex. However, upon closer inspection, she could sense no trace of her master's presence in the mansion. All auras came solely from Wei Yi. So, after a few casual words with Wei Yi, Xiaoli inquired if he knew her master, Yuping. Yuping? Wei Yi was somewhat surprised. Reflecting on the fact that the young woman was also a cultivator, he couldn't help but ask, "Are you talking about Taoist Master Yipin?" Xiaoli blinked, wondering if her master had deliberately concealed his true name. Or perhaps he had a different name in the past. Yipin, Yuping? Perhaps she was indeed her master. That's right. My master has many titles. She's been here before, hasn't she? Yes, haha, she's indeed a disciple of Taoist Master Yipin. I was wondering how this girl could be so extraordinary. Wei Yi chuckled. It seemed his guess was correct. The girl in green was a disciple of Taoist Master Yipin. Xiaoli's words confirmed her suspicions. It seemed that his master had indeed come to see Wei Yi. Perhaps they had even spent a night together, leaving Wei Yi with his master's aura. However, perhaps his master didn't want him to know about this. That's why she hadn't told us she'd been here. With the answer in her mind, Xiaoli no longer dwelled on the question, and changed the subject. After all, since his master didn't want him to know about her relationship with Wei Yi, it was best to avoid asking questions, lest she upset him. Within the county government, the former chief clerk, Zule, was now in charge. So when the one family members came to report the incident, Zule naturally dealt with the matter. After all, he had always been on Wei Yi's side, and now that he knew it was a cultivator who had taken action, he naturally didn't want to risk causing trouble. Alright, I understand. You can go back. We'll handle it. Zule dismissed the one family, and quickly put the matter behind him. In his tea house, Wang Yinchang read the document issued by the Ministry of Revenue. He also officially announced the establishment of the Chamber of Commerce, appointing him as president, and elected new guild leaders on the spot. Of course, these leaders were mostly his people, or those who had once followed him. Finally, he announced a decree requiring all families to donate money for offerings to the Shinran Taoist temple. This caused dissatisfaction among many. However, they dared not speak out. No matter how aggrieved they felt, they could do nothing. After all, it was an order from the imperial court. They dared not disobey it. Moreover, they could not afford to offend the Shinran Taoist temple, so they could only swallow their anger. So, as everyone left the Tinglan tea house, their faces were very heavy, except for those who had been promoted to guild leaders by the one family. After everyone left, Wang Yinchang immediately went to check on Wang Zai's injuries. Although he had woken up, he was so badly beaten that he could hardly speak clearly. Wang Yinchang was furious, especially after hearing that the girl in green had left Xiangman Lao. He immediately ordered all the warriors in the mansion to gather and prepare to go to Xiangman Lao to settle the score. However, aside from the two warriors he brought with him, none of the other warriors in the mansion were there. Where the hell did they go? Wang Yinchang glared at the butler and roared, "Master, they're all queuing up at the Wei family medicinal wine shop." The butler scratched his head, a look of panic on his face. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Killing Wang Yinchang. The steward's words were like a bucket of cold water, instantly sobering up Wang Yinchang, who had grown somewhat inflated by his appointment as Chamber of Commerce president. He then remembered that Wei Yi was no longer the same person he had been, and that he couldn't really touch him right now. The magistrate appointed by the Celestial Cult hadn't yet arrived, and the Celestial Cult hadn't officially entered Kingshow City. Wei Yi's prestige and popularity were unmatched in the city, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he commanded the support of hundreds. Challenging him now would be like hitting a rock with an egg. Not only would Lord Li's family, but the princess of the Jingan Palace would surely not sit idly by. The warriors in the city alone would be enough to put him in a difficult position. The Wei family's medicinal wine had captivated nearly every warrior in the city, becoming essential for their training. Not only them, but he himself also needed it. If he took on Wei Yi now, it would undoubtedly incur the displeasure of the warriors. So, He had to swallow his anger for now. Only when the power of the Shinran sect truly enters King's House City, or even completely controls King's House City, will he have enough capital to deal with Wei Yi. At that time, he will definitely take away all his winemaking recipes and medicinal wine recipes. Dad, avenge my child. Wanzai cried incoherently. Because his front teeth were broken, his speech was lisp. Let the young master take good care of himself. I still have things to do. Wang Yinchang changed the subject and turned around and walked out of the room. Dad, Wanzai called out in a ghostly manner, but Wang Yinchang left without looking back. Wanzai couldn't understand why his father became the president of the Chamber of Commerce, but suddenly became timid. In the evening, Wang Yinchang received an invitation from Zhao Hanqing. Zhao Hanqing heard that Wang Yinchang became the president of the Chamber of Commerce, so he specially held a banquet at his house to invite Wang Yinchang to come. HMPH, as expected, this Zhao Hanqing is a profit-seeking, opportunistic man. Now that he's seen me become the Chamber of Commerce president, he's turning back to offer me a favor. Is he trying to win me over again? Wang Yinchang said smugly. But as the saying goes, there are no permanent friends, only permanent interests. He wouldn't mind reconciling with Zhao Hanqing and joining forces again. Since Zhao Hanqing had made such a gesture, he couldn't resist. So, after sunset, Wang Yinchang took a carriage, escorted by his personal guards, to the Crown Prince's residence. Zhao Hanqing prepared a lavish dinner and even invited dancers and musicians from the music camp to perform. At the dinner, Zhao Hanqing congratulated Wang Yinchang and expressed his hope for a renewed alliance with the Wan family. Furthermore, he said he had already spoken with Wei Yi and could get him to hand over the Lanling wine recipe. He would also persuade Wei Yi to submit to the Wan family in the future and even get them to acquire a stake in their business. This delighted Wang Yinchang immensely. After all, he knew Wei Yi was a formidable opponent, and if he could get what he wanted without bloodshed, he didn't mind leaving Wei Yi alive. Zhao Hanqing's words brightened Wang Yinchang's mood. With the dancing girls entertaining him, the two drank until late, and Wang Yinchang finally left Zhao Hanqing's residence. Watching Wang Yinchang's retreating figure, Zhao Hanqing's smile gradually grew cold, and he whispered to himself, "Have a safe journey, shopkeeper one." Shortly after Wang Yinchang's carriage left the prince's residence, several figures in black emerged from the night, quietly following. However, the mantis stalks the cicada, and the orange cat follows. Orange, who had been stalking Wang Yinchang, weaved through narrow crevices and hid in various hidden spots. Soon after, as the Wan family carriage passed a secluded road, three figures suddenly emerged from the darkness and headed straight for the carriage. Almost instantly, the two guards accompanying the carriage's movements paled. They cried out, "Assassins!" and drew their swords to meet the attack. The driver whipped the horses, accelerating forward. In the carriage, hearing the guards' cries, Wang Yinchang's expression changed drastically. He immediately produced a talisman, one of the life-saving talismans his second brother had given him. It could be activated with blood. Without hesitation, he bit his finger and activated the talisman. The talisman ignited, instantly transforming into a curtain of light that enveloped him. His personal guard grasped the hilt of his sword and drew aside the curtain to peer outside. A rope was pulled from the ground in the road, and the galloping horse's front hoof caught on it, causing it to stumble and fall. The entire carriage overturned. Almost instantly, Wang Yinchang, protected by his personal guard, broke through the carriage and flew out. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Dozens of arrows pelted through the night. Wang Yinchang's personal guard swung their swords, blocking with all their might. Still, some arrows struck Wang Yinchang, only to be blocked by the light curtain. Though he'd been drinking heavily, Wang Yinchang was still an entry-level warrior, and with his life on the line, his mind remained clear. As he rushed out of the carriage, he grasped another talisman and activated it with his blood. Instantly, the talisman transformed into a white light, instantly converging into a giant bat that clutched him and soared into the night sky. Seeing this, the pursuing men in black thought it was bad news. The archers, hidden in the shadows, drew their bows and fired again. But the bird flew with incredible speed, and the light curtain surrounding Wang Yinchang couldn't be broken. After several more arrows were blocked by the light curtain, Wang Yinchang vanished into the distance. Meanwhile, Wang Yinchang's 3 guards and the coachman were also slain by the combined efforts of the men in black. Damn it. Wang Yinchang actually has talismans on him. What should we do? Go to the one residence? We've already alerted the enemy. Even if we chase him, we might not be able to find him. Alas, we failed this time. Killing him will be even harder. Several men in black said in deep voices. Just then, an archer emerged from the shadows and said, "Everyone, we can only help you so far. The rest is up to you. Thank you for your hard work." One of the men in black said, cupping his fists. "Let me warn you, the one residence is not a simple place. It's best not to force your way in. It's better to go back and plan things out. We can find a suitable opportunity to strike later." Hearing the archer's words, the men in black nodded, their hearts heavy. They knew the archer was right. Their mission tonight was likely a failure. The archer bowed and quickly disappeared into the night with the other archers. The men in black also quickly dispersed after conferring among themselves. In the night sky, Wang Yinchang, carried by a giant bird, breathed a sigh of relief. As expected, becoming the president of the Chamber of Commerce had touched upon the interests of too many people, bringing upon himself a fatal disaster. But he reflected, there weren't many in this city who dared to attack him, and who had the strength to do so. Could it be Xiao Hanking? Or perhaps Wei Yi? Or perhaps they had teamed up? Wang Yinchang pondered, but the latter possibility seemed more likely. But they think too little of me, Wang Yinchang. A few warriors want to ambush me? Such wishful thinking, huh? Wang Yinchang sneered. His own mansion lay just ahead. As long as he returned, with the protection of the great immortal, he would be even safer. If those dared to trespass on his one family's mansion, they would never return. As he pondered this, a sword shadow shrouded in golden light shot up from below. It then transformed into a blade of light, ripping through the night sky and slashing towards Wang Yinchang. In an instant, the world seemed to resonate with the sound of wind and thunder, and the night sky seemed illuminated by the sword's radiance. A chilling, murderous sword intent washed over Wang Yinchang, his pupils constricting, his hair standing on end, his face filled with terror. Yet, in a split second, the sword's radiance surged with unstoppable force, slicing the bird in the light curtain in front of Wang Yinchang in two. Wang Yinchang's body was also cleaved in two. Chapter 117, Eliminating the Roots. Wang Yinchang's body split in two, plummeting from the night sky onto the street. The few pedestrians on the street screamed in terror, sending them fleeing in panic. Wang Yinchang crouched on the ground, staring at his body, overcome with fear. But he had no time to dwell on the situation, or even reflect on his life. His consciousness was fading, and in a trance, he sensed a figure approaching. He struggled to see who it was, but his vision grew darker and narrower. Finally, total darkness enveloped him, and his consciousness faded. Unbeknownst to Wang Yinchang, the figure approaching him was a black cat. The cat looked at Wang Yinchang, confirming he was dead, and then scurried away, instantly disappearing into the night. Meanwhile, Xiao Hanking, back at the mansion, heard the news of the failed assassination attempt. His face darkened, and he remained silent for a long time. He hadn't expected that, despite his help, the Xiangsha alliance had still failed. He hadn't expected Wang Yinchang to possess so many life-saving talismans. It seemed he had truly underestimated the importance the Shinran cult placed on Wang Yinchang. Go. Xiao Hanking waved his hand. He then stood there alone, his expression uncertain. Although he wasn't worried Wang Yinchang would suspect him, the assassination attempt had failed, making it difficult to eliminate him again. Furthermore, if he missed this opportunity, once the Shinran cult officially entered Kingshao City, the powerful dragon and the local snake would join forces. Not only would Wang Yinchang become even more difficult to deal with, but the Shinran cult would also be able to leverage the One family's influence to quickly gain a foothold in Kingshao City. By then, Kingshao City might truly fall into the hands of the Shinran cult and the One family. Just as Xiao Hanking was at his wit's end, a man in a green shirt quickly ran over, bowed, and said, "Young master, Wang Yinchang is dead." What? Xiao Hanking turned around in surprise, unable to believe his ears. Wang Yinchang is dead. I don't know which master hacked him in half. His body is lying on the street, already dead. The man in green robes said word by word. Are you sure it was Wang Yinchang? Xiao Hanking's face was filled with surprise. It's definitely him. Hahaha, great, great. It seems the Xianxia Alliance has a backup plan. Zhao Han King was overjoyed. As long as Wang Yinchang was dead, all their efforts tonight would have been worthwhile. Moreover, with Wang Yinchang dead, it would be much harder for the Shinran cult to control King's House City's commerce. Most importantly, it would send a signal to all the major forces in the city, and even to the ordinary people. Someone dared to challenge the Shinran cult, and was capable of resisting them. This would also bring a glimmer of hope to everyone. In this increasingly dark world, hope is like a ray of light, inspiring more people to resist, rather than just accepting fate, and allowing the Shinran cult to take over King's House City without a fight. After killing Wang Yinchang, Wei Yi quietly returned to a carriage parked on the roadside. After learning that Wang Yinchang had gone to the Crown Prince's residence, he suspected the Xianxia Alliance might ambush him on his way home. So he had Juzi secretly observe him, and indeed, they had spotted the Xianxia Alliance. However, Wei Yi was also concerned about their failure, so he waited near the one residence, preparing for both scenarios. He deployed cats as spies, leaving Wang Yinchang nowhere to hide. This would aid him in successfully intercepting and killing him. Of course, even if he failed, Jinke would be the final move. So, when Wang Yinchang escaped, transforming into a giant bird using a talisman, he remained within Wei Yi's reach. Having precisely tracked Wang Yinchang's whereabouts, Wei Yi, using his magical power, reminiscent of the poem How Could I Obtain the Heavenly Sword, to cross the sea and slay the whale, successfully killed Wang Yinchang near the residence. Meanwhile, inside the one residence, a black cat quietly stalked, carrying a stack of paper. It easily circumvented the night watchman and reached Wan Zai's room. Wan Zai, unable to sleep due to the pain in his face, was taking his anger out on the maids. He asked for ice, then for medicinal wine, then for water, then for urine. He kept the maids running in and out, their hands and feet in a frenzy. The door to the room wasn't completely closed, and the black cat slipped in through the crack. Then, in the corner, it placed the stack of papers down. At the same moment, a faint light flickered on the papers, and a figure materialized from within, instantly knocking the two maids unconscious. Someone, medicinal wine, some more. It hurts so badly. It hurts so badly. Wan Zai yelled again, but this time, no one answered. He called out a few more times, somewhat disgruntled, before struggling to rise from the bed. Then, a ghostly figure appeared before him. Wan Zai's eyes widened in fear, and he was about to scream, when a white rainbow streaked across his neck, and the world before his eyes began to spin. But it wasn't the world that was spinning, but his falling head. Simultaneously, the piece of paper on the ground began to burn, eventually igniting the screen, and spreading to the surrounding area. In the night, Jinke's figure, like a ghost, silently approached the door of Wang Yinchang's second son's room. He and Wei Yi were in telepathy, so he knew everything about the one family mansion, including the rooms where all of Wang Yinchang's sons lived. After all, the orange cat had already explored the one family mansion thoroughly. Although Wang Yinchang had many wives and concubines, he only had 5 sons, with Wan Zai being the eldest. The second and third sons were already adults, but the fourth and fifth were still children. Wei Yi, however, had no intention of leaving any descendants for Wang Yinchang. Since he had chosen to strike, he would exterminate them all. So, Jinke was ordered to kill all 5 of Wang Yinchang's sons. But just as Jinke had killed Wang Yinchang's third son, a red fox suddenly burst into the room and lunged at Jinke. Jinke parried with his sword, forcing the fox back. The fox, floating in midair, spoke in human language. "May I ask who you are, sir? I'm enshrined by thousands of families to protect this mansion. I beg you to grant me a favor and let us go our separate ways." The fox had no desire to fight Jinke to the death. After all, it could sense an unusual aura emanating from him, which made it somewhat fearful. A fight would likely result in mutual destruction, a loss that would be worth the effort. But Jinke, a man of few words, swung his sword again at the fox. The fox instantly transformed into a red-robed woman, engaging Jinke in a fierce struggle. The sounds of their fight attracted the warriors from the mansion. However, they had no idea what was happening, nor did they know which of the two men was friend or foe, or why they were fighting in this mansion. For a moment, they dared not approach, merely watching from afar. But just then, Cries of a fire erupted from within the mansion. It was Wang Zai's room that had caught fire. Everyone in the mansion cried out in alarm, disregarding everything else as they rushed to put out the fire. After a fierce battle with Jinke, the red-robed woman gradually lost the upper hand. Jinke's radiant righteousness oppressed her, preventing her from exerting her full strength. Furthermore, his strength was extraordinary, and if she continued the fight, she feared she would suffer serious consequences. She knew clearly that the Wang family had clearly offended a powerful individual they shouldn't have, and she didn't need to risk her life for them. So, she transformed into a red fox once more, turned around, and fled, instantly disappearing into the night. Jinke didn't pursue her. After all, his mission wasn't complete. Chapter 118. Was it Wei Yi who did it? In a secluded room in the backyard of Fang, an elderly man in brocade robes sat with several men in nightgown, discussing the murder of Wang Yichang. The elderly man was Mr. Gong, as Shachan had mentioned. The men in black were the warriors who had recently assassinated Wang Yichang. They had also recently learned of his death, and were filled with joy and delight. They had initially assumed their mission had failed, and were secretly regretting their actions, pondering their long-term plans. Unexpectedly, a miraculous turn of events occurred. I just wonder which expert was secretly assisting us, Mr. Gong said with a smile. Wang Yichang had a talisman-formed shield, and was even flying on the giant bird, condensed with magical power. The one who could have slew him must be a cultivator, a nearby man in black remarked. Well, it seems so. As the saying goes, those who are righteous have many supporters, while those who are unrighteous have few. Even if we hadn't acted tonight, Wang Yichang might have been dead. Mr. Gong sighed. Mr. Gong. A voice suddenly called from outside the door. Come in. Mr. Gong responded. Another man in black entered, clasping his fists and saying, Mr. Gong, we just received word that the Wang family mansion is on fire. The fire is spreading rapidly. Many people have already escaped, and the patrol has arrived to help contain the flames. Upon hearing this, everyone in the room glanced at each other, their eyes filled with surprise. It seems a master has truly come to our aid. The Wang family is finished this time. Mr. Gong exclaimed happily. The flames from the Wang family mansion illuminated the night sky and alarmed the entire city. The patrol responded to put out the fire, and while they managed to contain the spread, most of the Wang family mansion was completely destroyed. Even more shocking than this news was the murder of Wang Yichang and his 5 sons. This news sent shockwaves through the city. The Wang family was a formidable force in Kingshao City, their dominance for so many years, yet they remained resilient. Wang Yichang committed countless evil deeds, earning him the deepest hatred of many, yet he remained remarkably alive for so many years. Therefore, in the minds of many, the Wang family stood as an immovable mountain. The sudden news that Wang Yichang and his entire descendants had been slaughtered was naturally shocking. Although Wang Yichang's wives and concubines survived, the extermination of him and his entire family was practically a complete annihilation of the entire clan. The few remaining women were powerless, and the Wang families might have been completely razed to the ground. Many speculated about who possessed the power to eliminate the Wang family. While this was shocking, for many, it was also a moment of joy, much like the joy of hearing about the assassination of County Magistrate Zheng. However, the greatest joy came from the city's merchants. Yesterday, they had been dejected by Wang Yichang's return to power and his appointment as president of the Chamber of Commerce, filled with worry and despair about the future. But to their surprise, Wang Yichang was eliminated overnight. They had previously wondered if Wei Yi, who had once shaken the Wang family's prestige, would strike again and turn the tide. Unexpectedly, a miracle actually occurred, giving them hope. Although dark clouds were creeping towards Kingshao City, someone here was capable of splitting the sea of clouds. Therefore, many merchants believed that Wei Yi was responsible. Even if it wasn't Wei Yi himself, it was someone he had hired. After all, almost all merchants knew about Wang Zai's beating yesterday. They also heard that it was the work of a cultivator. Although the cultivator was a patron of the restaurant, who knew what kind of personal relationship he had with Wei Yi. Furthermore, many people in the restaurant witnessed the green-clad girl attacking Wang Zai. So, rumors quickly spread throughout the city that Wei Yi had hired the green-clad girl to kill Wang Yichang's entire family. However, in the hearts of the people, Wei Yi and the green-clad girl were not villains, but heroes. Naturally, Wei Yi had also heard of the rumors circulating in the city, but he didn't care. Even if he hadn't killed Wang Yunchang, many would surely suspect him, especially since it was indeed his doing. He just hadn't anticipated that Xiaoli would be implicated. Meanwhile, Xiaoli and her senior sister, still in the red sleeves, had also heard the rumors circulating in the city. I told you not to wander around and incur consequences, but you wouldn't listen. The purple-clad woman said sternly, looking at Xiaoli. What's there to be afraid of? We have no evidence, and those officials can't do anything to us. Xiaoli said nonchalantly. She didn't think her actions were wrong. I'm not worried about the authorities, but the Shinran cult. If we were discovered by the Shinran cult, we would surely die, and we might even implicate our master. The purple-clad woman said gravely. Hearing this, Xiaoli fell silent. She knew her senior sister was right. The Shinran cult was the most tolerant of all demons among all Taoist sects. They believed that all races, except humans, were inferior, and all those not of their kind were enemies. We'll leave King's House City later. Although Master told us to wait here, now that this has happened, we should return and apologize to Master. The purple-dressed woman said. She knew well that once the Shinran cult discovered their identities, it would be too late to leave. Alright, I miss Master too. Xiaoli nodded, understanding her senior sister's point. So, after clearing the room of all traces and auras, the two quietly left Hangxiuzhou and exited King's House City. For some reason, the moment they left King's House City, Xiaoli suddenly felt a sense of emptiness, as if she had left something behind. In the hall of the Meng family compound, Meng Shulian's father, Meng Dayan, was overjoyed upon hearing the news of Wang Yunchang's murder. The Meng family had finally achieved their revenge. Although he wasn't sure if Wei Yi was responsible, as the rumors had it, the elimination of the Wan family was a great relief for him. He paced back and forth across the room on crutches, his amiable face brimming with excitement. He was also delighted by his improving health. Bedridden for years, he'd thought his old bones would soon be buried. Wei Yi's medicinal food and wine had unexpectedly saved him from the clutches of Hades. Not only had he recovered, but his physical condition was also improving. He felt he could be completely restored in a month or so. Now that the One family has been eliminated, my last remaining worry is gone. Good and evil will always be rewarded, and the One family has finally received its due, Meng Dayan said happily. Indeed, the heavens have mercy on us. The One family reaped the fruits of their own evil, and our Meng family's good deeds have been rewarded. Not only has our restaurant business grown, but Lina has also met a man as virtuous and talented as young Master Wei. Meng Shulian's mother was also delighted. Yes, Lina is so lucky. With Wei Yi taking care of her from now on, I'm relieved. Meng Dayan said with a smile. A few days ago, when I was chatting with Madame Wei, I mentioned the two children. Madame Wei also likes our Lina. She has also spoken with young Master Wei, and young Master Wei has expressed his desire to marry Lina, but he wants to wait until you are fully recovered before proposing. Madame Wei also said that she wants to arrange the marriages for the two children after Wei Tieshan returns home during the spring festival. That's great. Once the two children are married, I'll feel completely at ease. Lina will finally have a good home. Meng Dayan sat down on the chair, a happy smile on his face. Chapter 119 The War begins. At the Wei family compound, Zule, the county magistrate's chief clerk, arrived with two yamen runners. They made token inquiries about Wei Yi, asking questions such as whether he was home the previous night and what he was doing. Wei Yi was a suspected figure, and rumors were spreading throughout the city, prompting them to investigate. Otherwise, they would have no way to report to their superiors. Normally, a case like this would simply require the county magistrate to summon him for questioning. However, Zule knew Wei Yi's unique status and his immense prestige within the city. His every move would attract widespread attention and concern. If he dared to summon Wei Yi to the yamen, it would undoubtedly cause an unnecessary stir. Rumors would spread, making it seem as if Wei Yi had indeed murdered Wang Yunchang. If anyone mistakenly believed he had captured Wei Yi, then Prefect Li, Little Li of the patrol battalion, the princess and son of the royal family, and even General Len's daughter would surely come to question him. He would then have to explain himself to each and every one of them, a burdensome task. So he simply came over on his own initiative, went through the motions, inquired about the situation, and took notes. Regardless of whether Wei Yi had done it or not, he would assume it had nothing to do with Wei Yi. And his main question was actually about the girl in green. I don't know much about that girl. She simply had a meal at my restaurant and helped me drive away Wanzai, who came to cause trouble. I invited her to my home for a cup of tea out of gratitude. I only know that she's a cultivator, a hermit, but I don't know where she's from, Wei Yi said. Okay, thank you for your cooperation, young Master Wei. Zhu Lei suddenly looked at the Yamen runner and said, you can go back first. Yes, sir. The Yamen runner bowed and left the Wei residence first. After the bailiff left, Zhu Lei said gravely, Master Wei, now that it's just you and me, I'll be frank. The new magistrate should arrive tomorrow. He's a member of the celestial cult. Wang Yinchang is clearly a celestial cult born. Therefore, the celestial cult will certainly not let Wang Yinchang's death go unpunished. Therefore, upon his arrival, the new magistrate will definitely focus on investigating this case. My visit today is purely a formality, so I can report back to him later. Otherwise, I won't be able to give my all. I hope you understand. But he won't believe the results of my investigation. He'll definitely reinvestigate and even summon you. The rumors in the city are very unfavorable to you. I'm worried that he'll kill the wrong person, rather than let him go, just to satisfy the celestial cult. So you must be mentally prepared. Make advance warnings to Lord Li and the princess, so that if the new magistrate really wants to harm you, they'll come to your aid. But don't worry, I'll definitely help you with both internal and external support at the county magistrate's office. I'll absolutely not let the new magistrate have his way. Of course, I suspect that, once the new magistrate becomes familiar with Kingshao City and secures his position as magistrate, I'll undoubtedly be marginalized. At this point, Zhu Lei let out a wry smile, a look of resignation on his face. He knew this was inevitable. As the saying goes, a new emperor chooses his own ministers, and the same was true of the county magistrate's office. If the other party had been a sensible and righteous official like Lord Su Shen, he might have been given a valuable position. But this official from the celestial being sect might not possess such benevolence and broad-mindedness. Thank you, Lord Zhu, for the reminder. I understand. I'll make every possible preparation. Wei Yi bowed in gratitude. Although he didn't elaborate, he knew Zhu Lei's warning was sincere. He was worried that he might be unaware of the situation and be caught off guard by the new magistrate's investigation. Naturally, Wei Yi had anticipated this scenario long ago. Even if Wang Yinchang hadn't been murdered, he would undoubtedly face suppression and targeting from the celestial beings sect. After all, with his current prestige and fame within the city, he would undoubtedly become a key target of their attention. They wanted only two outcomes for someone like him: absolute submission, in which case he could leverage his prestige to help them quickly gain control of Kingshao City and establish a firm foothold, much like Wang Yinchang. The second option was complete elimination. Wei Yi would certainly not choose to submit to the celestial beings sect. The latter outcome would then be the only outcome that awaited him. Any dictator seeking power would hate to see an enemy with greater influence and prestige than themselves. Therefore, from the moment Wei Yi learned that the celestial being sect was planning to enter Kingshao City and establish a Taoist temple, the war had already begun. The execution of Wang Yinchang was the first battle of this war. While, from a broader perspective, this wasn't just his own struggle, it pitted the celestial being sect against the Xiangsha alliance on a personal level. It was also a contest between him and the celestial being sect. This was a struggle he waged for himself, for his family, for his fate, and for the life he desired. Everything had just begun, and once the arrow was shot, there was no turning back. He would face many more resistances in the future, unless one day the Shinran cult was completely eradicated, or even the corrupt imperial court was overthrown. Of course, Wei Yi did not regret his choice. Kingshao City was his home, holding everything he cherished and wanted to protect. Now that someone was trying to destroy the life he wanted, he couldn't just sit there and wait for death. He felt there was truth in the saying, there are always things in this world that give us the courage to overcome fear, even when facing a behemoth like the Shinran cult. Wei Yi knew that the Shinran cult wanted to control Kingshao City as quickly and smoothly as possible. One way to do this was to control local officials and local tyrants. Of course, another option was to resort to brutal force to suppress the people. Obviously, this was a poor option for them, as violent repression would have a greater backlash. Therefore, local officials and local tyrants became their most convenient means of controlling a region and their right-hand men. If these two arms were severed, they would no longer be able to easily control Kingshao City. Therefore, in Wei Yi's mind, the newly appointed county magistrate was also a target that must be eliminated. If the intelligence was true, and he truly was a pawn of the celestial being cult, then he would undoubtedly become a threat to his own safety, as Zhu Liang had claimed. Therefore, he could not be spared. However, Wei Yi felt that, if he had anticipated this, the Xiangsha alliance would have as well. They would undoubtedly take covert action against the new county magistrate. Therefore, Wei Yi planned to go to Miaoyinfang tonight to consult with Han Qiang and Mr. Gong to see if they had any countermeasures or actions. In the worst case scenario, he would take action himself and finish off the new county magistrate. Chapter 120 New Skills. As night fell, the brothels along West Lake once again bustled with activity. Wei Yi arrived at Miaoyinfang by carriage, only to learn that Han Qiang was entertaining Zhao Hanqing. Her singing could be faintly heard from upstairs. So Wei Yi headed to Han Xiao's Hao, intending to meet with Miss Liu Ru to discuss matters. He knew full well that Zhao Hanqing was also a member of the Xiangsha Alliance. He had invited Wang Yinchang to his mansion last night to assist the Xiangsha Alliance in their plan to ambush and kill him along the way. While Zhao Hanqing appeared to be a carefree and unassuming young man, often hanging out with the sons of wealthy merchants and gentry, he was actually a deeply ambitious individual. His years of covert control over Kingshao City's commerce was proof of this. Upon arriving at Han Xiao's Hao, Liu Ru immediately invited him to a private room. As expected, Liu Ru had been waiting for him. I knew you would arrive tonight, so I changed into my dress early, waiting for you to come and enjoy my dance. Liu Ru said with a sweet smile. She was wearing the same dress she'd worn the last time she danced for Wei Yi. A belly-bearing tube top, a shawl wrapped around her arms, a high-slit skirt, and bare feet. Her outfit had a distinctly exotic feel, like a beauty from the Dunhuang murals. After all, Wei Yi had been very pleased with her look the previous time. So, it seemed she had figured out his preferences and tastes. Tonight, she'd dressed up early again, awaiting Wei Yi's arrival. Miss Liu, you understand my feelings. I'll be lucky enough to see you dance again tonight, Wei Yi said with a smile. Of course. Liu Ru smiled sweetly, kneeling beside Wei Yi and pouring him a glass of wine. I'm sure I'll be a feast for your eyes tonight. After a few drinks with Wei Yi, Liu Ru invited the musicians behind the screen to play some music. That enchanting, graceful figure danced gracefully to the rhythm, like a butterfly among flowers, a ethereal bird, yet also like a phoenix soaring across the sky. Her body seemed to speak, like a pair of deft hands weaving a dazzling, breathtakingly beautiful painting. Her long slender legs, lifted high, split open like a majestic swan with its head held high. Her graceful feet slowly glided through the air, revealing the boundless beauty beneath her long skirt, captivating the heart. Wei Yi, a man who had watched countless films in his past life, watched Liu Ru's life form, and could not help but imagine all sorts of difficult intercourse positions. It's true that as one experiences more, one loses the ability to simply appreciate a dance. Alas, after the dance, Liu Ru's body seemed even more lithe. But Wei Yi, however, quietly felt the opposite. Afterward, Liu Ru dismissed the musicians and continued pouring wine for Wei Yi. While flirting, Liu Ru whispered to Wei Yi about Wang Yinchang's murder. Luckily, a master intervened in secret, otherwise Wang Yinchang would have escaped. As she spoke, her beautiful eyes subtly observed Wei Yi's expression. His calm reaction confirmed that he had indeed been secretly helping. However, she didn't press the issue further. After all, Wei Yi didn't feign surprise, nor did he bring up the matter himself. He simply hoped they would understand each other, and leave it at that. Liu Ru was naturally delighted by this answer, and she was filled with admiration for Wei Yi. No wonder Sha Chen had directly recommended him for the position of deacon. He truly deserved it. Furthermore, over the past few encounters, Liu Ru had always felt that Wei Yi was no ordinary person with no cultivation. If he were, why would he be so lightly dressed in such a cold winter? Every time she leaned against him, she felt a warmth, like the morning sun bathing her body, a profoundly comforting sensation. Liu Ru was therefore filled with curiosity about Wei Yi. She truly wanted to find out, to witness his strengths. Now that our Xiangxia Alliance's campaign against the celestial beings has fully commenced, the Alliance's top experts are primarily concentrated in the capital and Shanghaiang City. Even Sha Chen has been deployed to Shanghaiang City. This leaves Kingzhou City's combat power empty, without a top-tier expert to command it. The forces currently available are primarily provided by our allies within the city. Otherwise, the assassination of Wang Yinchang wouldn't have gone awry. Even if he truly possessed the talisman, a 4th rank warrior would have been able to slay him. Wei Yi understood Liu Ru's implication. Simply put, the Xiangxia Alliance had launched an all-out offensive against the celestial beings. Their main forces had been dispatched to the front lines. Kingzhou City was currently just a small battlefield, perhaps not even a battlefield. Therefore, facing the impending enemy, they could only rely on their members within the city, forming a militia to resist the small wave of incoming enemies. Therefore, the one who attacked Wang Yinchang last time wasn't a particularly powerful expert. Otherwise, Wang Yinchang wouldn't have escaped so easily. Now, they desperately need more and stronger forces to jointly resist the Shanren cult. The expert who killed Wang Yinchang is the very force they desperately desire. Wei Yi nodded, then asked, "Do you have any news about the new magistrate in Kingzhou City?" Liu Ru's eyes lit up at Wei Yi's words. Clearly, Wei Yi understood what he was saying and decided to lend a hand. Sister Han Kaiang will be hosting a reception on the West Lake Pleasure Boat tomorrow night. Those attending will be members of the Xiangxia Alliance. They should also notify you to attend. Then, they'll discuss how to deal with the new magistrate and the Shanren cult cultivators who will be arriving soon. Liu Ru whispered. Okay. Wei Yi nodded. It seemed tomorrow they would know which powerful figures in Kingzhou City were members of the Xiangxia Alliance. Young master, another toast to you. Liu Ru raised her glass and emptied it. The wine soaked her red lips, making them appear even more juicy and alluring. Sir, you said last time that you definitely stay next time. So, won't you stay tonight? Liu Ru's once serious expression suddenly became charming and alluring, her eyes filled with desire. After all, they'd finished discussing business matters. It was time to discuss personal matters. She didn't want to stay alone in the empty room again tonight. That depends on whether you have a reason for me to stay, Wei Yi said with a smile, wrapping his arm around Liu Ru's lithe waist. Of course, I've prepared a dance just for you, sir. A dance we can do on the bed, Liu Ru said charmingly, nestling in Wei Yi's arms. Oh, that's quite interesting, Wei Yi said with interest. Sir, wait for me. Liu Ru happily stood up and ran barefoot into the bedroom. The bedroom was a room adjacent to the private room, where Liu Ru usually lived. The private room Wei Yi was staying in was actually a hall connected to the bedroom. Soon after, Liu Ru's charming voice rang out from the bedroom, "Young master, come in." Wei Yi drank another glass of wine, then stood up and walked into Liu Ru's bedroom. The room was filled with the fragrance of flowers, a scent that echoed Liu Ru's. Liu Ru was half reclining on the bed, wearing a light gauze dress. Her slender and graceful figure, half revealed, seemed even more alluring. Chapter 121. Courtesy first, then attack. Near noon, more than a dozen Shanren sect cultivators arrived in Kingzhou City. Accompanying them was the newly appointed county magistrate, Wang An. More accurately, they had arrived early to escort Wang An. The murder of Wang Yinchang had infuriated their elders, who ordered a thorough investigation and the elimination of the Xiangxia Alliance from Kingzhou City. They also ordered the swift acquisition and control of the Wan family's assets, to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. Their ultimate goal, of course, was to completely control King's House City and establish a Taoist temple there to accelerate their plans. The leader of these dozen Shinran sect cultivators was Jiang Siren, the chief disciple of the Shinran sect's Grand Elder. He was a cultivator in the late Foundation establishment stage, possessing immense strength. Generally speaking, a cultivator in the early Foundation establishment stage is comparable to a 6th grade warrior. A cultivator in the middle Foundation establishment stage is comparable to a 5th grade warrior. And a cultivator in the late Foundation establishment stage rivals a 4th grade warrior. Even with the aid of various magical tools, their strength far surpasses that of a 4th grade cultivator. After escorting one into the county government office, Jiang Siren left several of his fellow apprentices behind to protect him. He then led the others to the One family mansion. The mansion was now a scene of desolation and desolation. Many houses had fallen into ruin, and the few that remained were draped with white silk and black cloth. A mourning hall was set up in the courtyard, where Wang Yinchang's 2 wives and concubines and several servants stood vigil. The remaining concubines and servants had already fled the one household. After all, they had been forcibly married, and it was only natural that they had taken advantage of the chaos to escape with their belongings. Rinsheng, you will now be responsible for taking over the One family's assets. After all, you are a descendant of the One family. From now on, you will manage the One family's assets on your brother's behalf. As for your brother's death, we will naturally avenge him. Jiang Siren said to a young man beside him. The young man looked somewhat like Wang Yinchang, but appeared much younger. In fact, he was already in his 30s. However, due to his spiritual practice, he looked much younger than an average person, appearing to be in his 20s. This person was Wang Yinchang's younger brother, Wang Yincheng. In fact, aside from Wang Yinchang and his wife, Sun, few people knew Wang Yinchang had a younger brother. Even less did they know that this younger brother was a cultivator of the Shinran sect. Shortly after Wang Yincheng was born, the One family suffered a catastrophe. A fortune teller predicted that he was incompatible with the One family and might bring catastrophic disaster upon the family. So, his father fostered him with relatives. However, when Wang Yincheng was 10 years old, all his relatives in the foster family died, and the One family once again suffered a series of disasters that year. Later, the fortune teller advised that only by sending Wang Yincheng to a Taoist temple to become a monk and completely sever ties with the One family, could the family escape disaster. So, at the age of 10, Wang Yincheng was sent to the Shinran sect to cultivate and practice, changing his name to Rinsheng. From then on, the One family truly began to improve. To atone for their debt to their son, the One family generously sent offerings to the Shinran sect, hoping they would provide them with the necessary care and training for Wang Yincheng. Over time, a close relationship developed between the One family and the Shinran sect. Well, senior brother, don't worry. I will definitely revive the One family and help our sect control King's House City, Wang Yincheng said in a deep voice, his eyes gleaming with coldness. Although he didn't harbor deep feelings for the One family, nor did he feel grief or sorrow over Wang Yincheng's death, he still considered himself a member of the One family, and his share of the family's legacy was his due. Now that he had returned, he intended to inherit everything and reclaim what was rightfully his. After paying his respects to Wang Yincheng at the funeral hall, Wang Yincheng summoned his wives and concubines to his room. He inquired in detail about what had happened that night. He and Jiang Siren, who was standing nearby, were both surprised to hear them mention that someone had seen the assassin fighting with a woman in red. After Wang Yincheng's detailed inquiries, Wang Yincheng's wife finally revealed the truth. I later speculated that it must be the guardian deity enshrined by the master. Originally, only the master and I knew about this. Guardian deity? Wang Yincheng was a little surprised. What deity? Just a demon? Jiang Siren asked from the side. Seeing the surprised expressions on Wang Yincheng's wives and concubines' faces, he explained. Many wealthy families enshrine so-called guardian deities within their mansions to ward off evil spirits and misfortunes. These are actually powerful demons with a certain level of magical power, capable of dealing with minor ghosts and demons, and even intimidating weaker cultivators. However, such enshrinements carry dangers. They are demons, after all. While intelligent, they lack humanity, are capricious, and bloodthirsty. Therefore, so-called guardian deities often become the scourge of families. Could it be the same this time? Wang Yinchang's wife asked in surprise. Not really. This was clearly a deliberate assassination. If it were truly a demonic rebellion, you wouldn't be alive today, Jiang Siren said. Wang Yinchang's wife nodded. Take me to see where you enshrine the demon, Jiang Siren said. Okay. Wang Yinchang's wife led Jiang Siren, Wang Yinchang, and other Shinran sect practitioners to a courtyard behind the Wan family ancestral hall. Usually, only Wang Yinchang came here, no one else was allowed near. It's in here. Wang Yinchang's wife hesitated to enter. After all, she was a little frightened by what Jiang Siren had just said. Jiang Siren nodded and immediately led Wang Yinchang and the other disciples into the courtyard. Inside the room, they saw the shrine. It's a fox demon. Jiang Siren sensed the presence of a fox demon. However, it was clear that the demon had already left. He took out a talisman and placed it on the shrine. He formed a hand seal and cast a spell on the talisman. The talisman suddenly glowed with a brilliant green light, transforming into countless threads that penetrated the shrine, drawing out wisps of the fox demon's aura. Finally, it flew back into Jiang Siren's hands. He handed the talisman and a compass to a cultivator behind him and said, "You guys search for this fox demon. I think she's probably still hiding in this city. Let me know when you find her." "Yes, senior brother." That afternoon, Wang Yincheng began gradually taking over the Wan family's assets, and the news spread quickly throughout the city, causing quite a stir. Everyone then learned that Wang Yincheng actually had a younger brother, a disciple of the celestial being sect. But upon closer inspection, they seemed to understand why Wang Yincheng had become a pawn of the celestial being sect, and why he was able to run rampant in Kingshao City. Naturally, this news reached Wei Yi immediately. Wang Yincheng had only recently arrived in Kingshao City. Miao Fang sent someone to deliver a letter to Wei Yi, inviting him to join an evening boat cruise. They also informed Wei Yi about Wang Yincheng and the new magistrate, Wang An. Wei Yi was naturally surprised to hear that Wang Yincheng had a younger brother, but he didn't dwell on it. Even if Wang Yincheng had a younger brother, he couldn't be another Wang Yincheng. At most, his role was to help the Shinran cult, temporarily holding on to some of the Wan family's existing wealth and extracting the remaining surplus value. But to replace Wang Yincheng and control Kingshao City's commerce was sheer wishful thinking. As the saying goes, a powerful dragon cannot defeat a local tyrant. Wang Yincheng was the undisputed local tyrant, but Wang Yincheng wasn't, and he couldn't become one either. This was why the Shinran cult valued Wang Yincheng so highly. Therefore, Wei Yi believed that, if the Shinran cult desired to control Kingshao City, they would undoubtedly seek out a new local tyrant to assist them. "Young master, a cultivator from the Shinran cult wishes to see you." Wei Yi, painting in his study, heard the servant's announcement. He didn't respond immediately, but continued painting. He had anticipated the Shinran cult's visit. After all, with his current reputation and prestige in the city, he was undoubtedly their best candidate, aside from Wang Yincheng. Although he was the prime suspect in their attempt to eliminate Wang Yincheng, to the Shinran cult, Wang Yincheng was merely a pawn. If there is a better chess piece to replace, they naturally won't care who killed Wang Yincheng. Wei Yi painted for a long time, and the servant was very tactful and waited by the side without saying much. "Okay, it's done." Wei Yi put down his brush and looked at his painting with satisfaction. The painting shows a woman playing the guzheng, who is Han Kaiang from Miao Fang. Wei Yi is going to participate in the lake cruise tonight, so he naturally can't go empty-handed, so he painted a portrait of Han Kaiang. "By the way, you just said that the people from the Shinran sect want to see me?" Wei Yi then looked at the servant next to him. "Yes, sir, they are waiting outside the courtyard." The servant said, "Please invite them to the hall." Wei Yi said casually. Outside the courtyard gate, Jiang Siren and two Shinran sect monks waited for a long time, but no servant came to invite them in, and they were already quite unhappy. "What's Wei Yi up to? He's deliberately leaving us here. Is he trying to show us off?" "Brother, it seems we need to teach him a lesson," the two Shinran sect monks said with disapproval. Jiang Siren remained silent, but his expression was icy. He had decided that, if Wei Yi didn't send someone to invite them in, he would simply force his way in. Since he refused to accept a toast, he wouldn't mind teaching Wei Yi a lesson. But just as Jiang Siren was about to kick the gate open, it suddenly flew open. The servant who announced the situation said, "You Taoist priests, thank you for waiting. Please come in." Jiang Siren, his face gloomy, followed the servant into the Wei family compound. Finally, he took a seat in the main hall. "You Taoist priests, I apologize for not welcoming you," Wei Yi said with a half smile, clasping his fists. The saying goes, be polite before using force. Although he saw these people as his enemies, he knew they would become his enemies sooner or later. He might even send them to reunite with Wang Yanchang soon. But in broad daylight, one still had to be humanitarian. It seems young Master Wei is very busy. You've waited longer to see him than the prefect. Jiang Siren also bowed, his face forced with a forced smile. "I'm truly sorry, but I'm a servant who doesn't know the rules. Seeing me asleep, I didn't dare wake me. Alas, I let myself go a bit at Hang Xiao's Heo last night, and I'm just catching up on some sleep. And I have a terrible bad temper when I wake up, so even the servants didn't dare wake me," Wei Yi said with a smile. As the saying goes, people speak their truth to people, and ghosts speak their truth to ghosts. It's up to the judge to decide whether they are human or ghost. "So, young master, are you still in a bad mood?" Jiang Siren asked. "Haha, Taoist priest, you're joking. Seeing the pig seat naturally makes you feel much better." Wei Yi laughed heartily. "I just enjoy making you unhappy, and you can't do anything about it." After hearing Wei Yi's words, Jiang Siren naturally couldn't say anything else. Besides, he had come to win Wei Yi over, so he swallowed his anger. "Just consider it a contribution to your own sect. Masters Yui, please take a seat. Someone, bring tea," Wei Yi said loudly. Thanks to Dark Knight Starry Morning for the 500 Kidian coins, and thank you all for your monthly votes. Chapter 122 I Go to Jail Alone. "By the way, I wonder what Masters Yui wants from me?" Wei Yi asked, knowing the answer. "Young master, you're a smart man, so I won't beat around the bush. My Shinran sect needs someone to replace Wang Yanchang, and you're a perfect candidate. If you're willing, our sect can help you ascend to the position of president of the Chamber of Commerce, taking charge of all of Kingshao City's commerce," Jiang Siren said sternly. "Replace Wang Yanchang? Sorry, you've got the wrong person. I've always been ashamed of scum like Wang Yanchang, let alone becoming his replacement. Masters Yui, please seek someone more capable." Wei Yi shook his head repeatedly. Wei Yi's words made Jiang Siren's expression grow even colder. He paused, then spoke again. "Perhaps it's due to my own way of expressing myself. My point is, I hope you can cooperate with the Shinran sect and help us take control of all businesses and commerce in Kingshao City. Of course, we won't treat you unfairly. At least, we won't touch your Wei family's assets, nor will we collect any incense fees from you." "Haha, Taoist priest, you're too kind. I really don't have the ability or ambition to do that. I just want to do what I enjoy and live a leisurely, undisturbed life," Wei Yi said with a forced smile. "Sir, are you really not going to consider it?" Jiang Siren frowned. Although a hint of displeasure was already evident, he suppressed his anger. After all, Wei Yi was the most suitable candidate at the moment. "Well, no." Wei Yi shook his head. He yawned again, then said, "I'm feeling sleepy again. By the way, does Yui have anything else to do?" Seeing Wei Yi's expression, Jiang Siren's face darkened completely. He had finally understood. Wei Yi would never choose to submit to the Shinran sect. He didn't even take them seriously. This behavior made him wonder if Wei Yi was also a member of the Xiangsha Alliance. Otherwise, it was impossible for an ordinary businessman not to be tempted by the benefits he promised. And certainly not like Wei Yi, who implicitly expressed his disdain for the Shinran sect. "Young Master Wei, Jiang has something to say to you. He who knows the times is a hero, while those who defy fate will only lead to death without a burial place." Well, that's true. Those who defy fate will only lead to death without a burial place. Let's go to the pigs too, and encourage each other. Wei Yi smiled meaningfully. "Goodbye," Jiang Siren said coldly, then stood up and walked out. The Tieshan sect monks who came with him also gave Wei Yi a cold look and followed Jiang Siren out of the Wei residence. Brother, this Wei Yi is so ungrateful. Who does he think he is? He's putting on airs in front of you. He's truly courting death. That's right. I just wanted to teach this ignorant fellow a lesson for you. Brother, I think he must be the one who murdered Wang Yinchang. Maybe he's even a member of the Xiangsha Alliance. Hearing his fellow disciples' words, Jiang Siren said coldly, King Guiyang, go inform Lord Wang and have him throw Wei Yi in jail. Yes, brother. The cultivator named King Guiyang said, immediately heading towards the county government office. After Jiang Siren and the others had left, the orange cat in the corner slowly emerged and watched them disappear. Wei Yi, at home, naturally overheard their conversation through his orange ears. However, he had expected their words and wasn't surprised. Seeing that he couldn't be used by the Shinran sect, these people would naturally want to eliminate him once and for all. But Wei Yi shared his thoughts. Towards evening, 2 Yamen runners, accompanied by 4 Shinran sect monks, arrived at the Wei residence. They summoned Wei Yi to the county Yamen for questioning regarding the investigation into Wang Yinchang's death. Young Master Wei, don't worry. The magistrate simply needs to personally inquire about the circumstances, so please come with us. Yes, young Master Wei, we are truly sorry. We are only following orders, and we hope you understand. The 2 runners repeatedly explained, fearing Wei Yi's displeasure. After all, they truly didn't want to be accomplices to a sinister scheme. It was simply their duty, and they could only follow orders. No problem, I'll just go and meet the new magistrate. Wei Yi said with a smile. He had known that Jiang Siren would have won and deal with him, so he was prepared. And as he had said, he truly wanted to meet the magistrate. After all, if he didn't meet him, how would he know who he was going to kill and what he looked like? His only regret, however, was that he might miss the meet and greet with the Xiangsha Alliance members tonight. Following 2 Yamen runners to the county government office, Wei Yi marveled at how his mood changed with each visit. First, for his second uncle, he felt worried and helpless. Then, for Meng Shulian, he gained a certain confidence and no longer feared the county government office. And then, thanks to Su Lingyan, the county government office became like a friend's home. Though things had changed, the government office no longer held any authority in his eyes. He felt no fear returning there, because now, he no longer had to take it seriously. Upon arriving at the county government office, Wei Yi met the new magistrate, Wang An. He had a cunning face, a perfect example of a typical villain from a film or TV series. Wang An sat on the high platform in the warm room, gazing sinisterly at Wei Yi below. Above him, a golden plaque read, a clear mirror hangs high, and on the 2 pillars, the inlaid wooden couplets read, to deceive others is to deceive heaven. Do not deceive yourself. To betray the people is to betray the country. How can one bear to betray them? It seemed so incongruous and ironic with his treacherous and sinister appearance. Are you Wei Yi? Wang An asked coldly. Yes. Wei Yi said calmly, a hint of an intriguing smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Do you know why I summoned you? Wang An asked again. Hearing Wang An's question, Wei Yi sneered. You are a dog of the Shinran sect, so why are you pretending to be so high and mighty with me? And you ask me if I knew why. Isn't it because of the Shinran sect that you summoned me? Wei Yi sneered. Wei Yi's words made Wang An feel as if something was stuck in his throat, and he was speechless for a moment. He even felt a little ashamed, as if his pants had been stripped in public. Yes, he actually felt ashamed. This surprised Wei Yi. No wonder this man was so arrogant. I don't understand what you're talking about, Wang An said coldly. HMPH, sir, why do you have to feign ignorance when you know the truth? You, a magistrate, have to have Shinran sect monks standing by to listen in on a case. I don't know when this custom was established in our dynasty. If you weren't wearing your official uniform, I'd be hard pressed to tell who was the master if you stood together. Wei Yi's words made Wang An's face flush and pale, filled with shame and rage. He immediately banged the gavel to mask his humiliation and anger at being exposed. Come here. Wei Yi is a major suspect in the One family case. Take him to the jail immediately to await trial. Wang An shouted sharply. As soon as he finished speaking, the Yamen runners in the hall looked at each other, but no one responded or stepped forward. "Are you all deaf?" Wang shouted angrily at the runners below. But they remained hesitant, exchanging glances. "Alright, don't embarrass them. I'm very familiar with your prison. I'll go there myself," Wei Yi said with a smile. He then turned and walked out of the hall. Seeing Wei Yi's contempt for authority and his nonchalant demeanor, Wang felt as uncomfortable as if he had swallowed a fly. He couldn't figure out whether this guy had a mental problem or had taken the wrong medicine. Was he really so arrogant that he didn't even take a county magistrate seriously? It seemed that Jiang Siren was right. This kind of person must not be kept. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123. It's getting lively now. Wei Yi knew that Wang, summoning him, would find all sorts of excuses to imprison him. After all, the Shinran cult had him there to teach him a lesson, to dampen his arrogance, or perhaps even to find an opportunity to eliminate him. So, Wei Yi knew that no matter what he said, the end result would be imprisonment. As the saying goes, there's always a pretext to accuse someone. Since the outcome was inevitable, why bother playing along with Wang and making things difficult for himself? Arriving at the prison, Wei Yi walked straight into the cell where his second uncle had been held, a reunion of sorts. "Young Master Wei, don't worry. Lord Wang wouldn't dare do anything to you. We'll report this to Lord Zubu, and he'll help you find a solution." The Yamen runner who escorted Wei Yi whispered. "Well, thank you. By the way, could you bring me some brush, ink, paper, and inkstone so I can write when I'm free?" Wei Yi said. "No problem." The Yamen runner quickly brought Wei Yi brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone, and also brought a small table. "Thank you." Wei Yi bowed. The Yamen runner gave the jailer a few words of advice before leaving the cell. In the hall behind the county government office, Jiang Siren and Wang sat together, drinking tea and discussing Wei Yi's situation. "Master, what do you plan to do with Wei Yi?" Wang asked. "Lock him for a few days. Once I've settled matters in the city, we'll consider how to deal with him," Jiang Siren said. "Brother, why not just get rid of Wei Yi? He's incredibly arrogant and doesn't even take us seriously. Keeping him around is a disaster." The cultivator named King Yang said indignantly. "We can't kill him yet. Wei Yi holds considerable prestige in King's House City. Killing him now would likely lead to significant trouble, severely hampering our future plans. So, we'll keep him in the cell for now. We can also use this opportunity to support a new merchant as the president of the King's House City Chamber of Commerce," Jiang Siren said. He naturally wanted to kill Wei Yi, the troublemaker, but they had just arrived in King's House City, so now was not the time to cause any major trouble. As they spoke, a Yamen runner's voice suddenly came from outside the doorway, announcing, "Sir, the prefect is here." "What's the prefect doing here so late?" Wang was a little surprised and quickly stood up to greet him. As he reached the door, he saw Yi Zinian approaching with a stern face. "Greetings, prefect." Wang bowed. Li Zinian nodded and walked straight into the hall, glancing at the several Shinran sect cultivators in the room. These people had come to visit him on their visit today, so he knew them. They bowed, and Li Zinian nodded. Although he deeply disliked the Shinran sect's disruptive behavior and evil deeds, he was not like Su Zhe, a man of integrity who would rather die than yield. He was tactful and flexible, so even if he didn't want to associate with them, he wouldn't make them his enemy. At least on the surface, things were fine. Everyone kept to themselves. Lord Wang is truly dedicated to his work and the people. He's only just arrived today, and he's already investigating this case overnight, Li Zinian said, hinting at something. "Haha, Lord Li, you're too kind. I was forced to do this. After all, the Wan family case is a serious matter." Wan Yinchang was, after all, the Chamber of Commerce president appointed by the Ministry of Revenue, a semi-official position. His murder is a disregard for royal authority. Therefore, I, Wang, am under immense pressure and have to investigate as soon as possible. Wang An beamed. Li Xinian gave a non-committal smile and immediately sat down at the head of the table. He had come here because he'd heard about Wei Yi's detention. While he didn't want to completely antagonize Wang An and the Shinran sect over Wei Yi's case, he had some friendship with Wei Yi, so he had to do something. At least his presence would intimidate Wang An and the others, making them restrain themselves. They wouldn't act recklessly, arbitrarily accuse Wei Yi, and threaten his life. But what does this have to do with Wei Yi? As far as I know, Lord Zhu has already investigated, and there's no possibility that Wei Yi committed the crime. These rumors in this city can't be used as evidence. Li Xinian continued. Haha, that's right. I only summoned him as a suspect for questioning. After all, he's the most likely suspect at the moment, Wang An said with a smile. Is the interrogation over now? Li Xinian asked again. Not yet. I wonder if Lord Li has any instructions? Wang An's expression gradually grew colder. With the support of the Shinran sect, he naturally had no fear of Li Xinian. Then I'll go over and see how the interrogation progresses. Since the court is taking this case so seriously, and Lord Wang has just arrived in King's House City and is so busy, I will assist Lord Wang in investigating this case. Li Xinian said sternly. He knew Wang An didn't take him seriously, but he didn't care. How dare this humble servant trouble Lord Li? Wang An said with a forced smile. At this moment, the voice of a Yamen runner suddenly rang out from outside the gate. Sir, the princess of the Jingan Palace requests an audience. Princess. Wang An's face changed. What was the princess of the Jingan Palace doing here again? Could she be here for Wei Yi as well? Although Wang An had heard that Wei Yi was quite famous in King's House City before arriving, he wasn't entirely sure about his specific connections and relationships. This was one of the reasons why they needed the assistance of someone like Wan Yanchang. Sir, you may not know, but this princess is Wei Yi's student, Li Xinian said from the side. Wang An's face changed, and he hurried out to greet her. He arrived at the county government gate, approached the carriage, and said respectfully, your humble servant greets the princess. I apologize for not welcoming you in person. I hope you will forgive me for not welcoming you in person. I just don't know why the princess has come to see you so late at night. I heard that your excellency summoned my teacher for questioning. It's getting late now. I wonder if your excellency has concluded his interrogation? Zhao Jinsi asked coldly from the carriage. Well, not yet. Wei Yi is a serious suspect and will likely require a thorough interrogation. Rest assured, my lady, I won't make things difficult for him. Wang An said gravely. Very well, then, I will await your interrogation tonight at the county government office. With that, Zhao Jinsi dismounted from the carriage and, escorted by guards, entered the government office. My lady, this is unacceptable. Wang An hurried after him, but Zhao Jinsi ignored him and headed straight inside. Suddenly, a commotion erupted in the distance. Firelight illuminated the distant street, followed by the sound of hurried, chaotic footsteps and the clashing of armor and weapons. It was a large group of soldiers, led by Lin Zuna, running towards them. These were the general's guards, fully armed and imposing. Arriving at the government office, Lin Zuna immediately gave the command, surround this place. Hearing the noise outside, Wang An once again arrived at the gates. But upon seeing the scene before him, his expression changed drastically, and he shouted fiercely, what are you doing? At the same time, Jiang Siren and several other Shinran disciples came running out upon hearing the noise, and were also astonished by the scene before them. Chapter 124, Scared to Pee. What are they up to? A rebellion? Asked the Shinran sect cultivator named King Jiang. This King's House City is truly lawless. Jiang Siren frowned. He quietly circulated his ki, preparing to strike. He hadn't expected Wei Yi to possess such formidable influence. Not only had the prefect come, but the princess had as well. Now the general's mansion had actually sent troops to surround the county government office. He knew Wei Yi held considerable prestige in King's House City, but it now seemed he had underestimated his influence. Wang An had merely imprisoned him for trial, and yet he had already alerted so many important figures. Killing him would truly cause serious trouble. Naturally, Jiang Siren wasn't afraid of the palace guards before him. Even if the young woman leading the group seemed incredibly skilled in martial arts, He was confident he could kill her. "What are you doing?" Wang An shouted again, but he took a few steps back. "I'm worried about the princess, so I've brought people to protect her," Lin Zuna shouted sternly. She then turned to the guards behind her and shouted, "Surround them. Don't spare a single fly." "Yes." The guards responded in unison, their momentum astonishing. Wang An's face paled in fear, and the cold night wind in King's House City seemed even more biting. But just then, another group of men hurried over. They were clearly soldiers from the patrol battalion. The man at the head, riding a tall horse, was none other than the patrol battalion's Lieutenant General Li Yu. "Come on, surround the county government office," Li Yu shouted from his horse, his right hand resting on his sword. "Yes." The guards from the patrol battalion responded in unison, forming two encircling circles with the guards from the general's mansion. "What are you doing, patrol battalion?" Wang An's face darkened even more. He had already retreated to Jiang Siren's side. "Don't misunderstand, Lord Wang. We're worried about your safety, so we've come here specifically to protect the county magistrate," Li Yu sneered. Then he shouted, "Everyone, listen. Keep a tight defense. Don't let a single fly escape." Wang An nearly vomited blood in anger. These people were clearly demonstrating against him. Even their lines were the same. Who the hell was this Wei Yi? How did he possess such power? But as Li Yu finished his words, another commotion erupted nearby. It was a large group of students from King Feng Academy, marching in a mighty procession. Finally, they passed through the encirclement of the Lin family's guards and the patrol battalion, heading straight for the county government gates. Leading the group were Du Shaoling and Su Zhe. Their faces were stern, their gazes fierce. They exuded an aura of unyielding integrity and unyielding spirit, intimidating even to the point of death. They walked past Wang An and the others, oblivious to their presence, and finally arrived at the county government hall. "Today we will wait here together for Master Wei," Du Shaoling said loudly. "Yes." A group of students responded. "Come on, please make way, make way." Guo Pixiu's shouting voice came from the back of the crowd again. There was another commotion at the scene. Everyone looked and saw that it was the leader of the Dayan gang, Guo Dayan, and Guo Pixiu, who were walking over with a group of warriors. Tell me, how can there be people in this world who don't want to be good people, but have to be dogs? No, such people are not even as good as dogs. Dogs are at least kind. Guo Pixiu walked over and said in a roundabout way. Wang An was so angry that he almost cried. He never expected that the forces in King's House City were so arrogant that they didn't even take him, the county magistrate, and the Shinran sect seriously. Are they also arrogant? Warriors of the Dayan gang, listen up. Young Master Wei is my best brother. From now on, anyone who dares to harm young Master Wei will be fought to the death by the Dayan gang. Do you understand? Yes, understood. That's right. Whoever harms young Master Wei will be killed. The warriors were shouting in unison, their momentum threatening to start a fight at the slightest disagreement. Wow, it's really lively here. Another hearty laugh rang out. It was the head of the Yu family, Yu Zhengang, who had gathered with a group of warriors. They had no real ties to Wei Yi, but they were very fond of the Wei family's medicinal wine. Plus, Zhao Hanking had come personally to ask for his help, asking him to lead his men, to put pressure on the county government. So, he'd come along to join in the fun. Hey, brother Guo is here too, Yu Zhengang said, looking at Guo Dayan and clasping his fists. Brother Yu, why are you out for a walk so late at night? Guo Dayan clasped his fists and said with a smile. Haha, I don't have the time for that. I just went to see young Master Wei about something, and when I heard he was at the county government office, I came here to wait for him. So, aren't you here to see young Master Wei too? Yes, why don't we wait here together? Guo Dayan said. Hey, county magistrate, when will young Master Wei be released? Yu Zhengang asked loudly, looking at Wang An. Wang An naturally didn't answer, his expression utterly unpleasant. But he dared not speak out. After all, these people before him were no ordinary people. They were all entry-level warriors, and each one of them looked terrifyingly murderous. This Wei Yi is truly something. Jiang Siren's face darkened as he watched the assembled crowd of warriors and guards. He felt a surge of fear. Although he wasn't afraid of a 4th rank warrior, he couldn't stand up to their sheer numbers. Among them were several 5th rank warriors. If they all rushed him, he wouldn't be able to handle them, even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. Even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. So, at this moment, he dared not speak, fearing the public outrage. He cherished his life deeply. After all, he had painstakingly cultivated for decades to reach his current level of cultivation. Naturally, he didn't want to die, nor did he want to damage his core and foundation. "Master, what do you think we should do now?" Wang Yin asked, looking at Jiang Siren in a low voice. He was also afraid. He had just arrived in King's House City today, and he hadn't expected to attract so many powerful forces and martial arts masters. This grand scene was unprecedented in his life, and he was completely overwhelmed. How could he have any response? He wished he could just find a shelter hide in, to avoid the pressure of so many people. In the cold wind, cold sweat even broke out on his forehead. "Let's go inside," Jiang Siren whispered. Wang Yin immediately turned and ran inside, not daring to look back, even when he heard the crowd calling from behind. He finally breathed a sigh of relief when he returned to his room, but he saw that Magistrate Li was still waiting there. "Master Wang, why do you look so grim?" "Master Prefect, I'm truly sorry. I'm feeling unwell and may not be able to entertain you. Please make yourself at your leisure," Wang Yin said grimly. He immediately retreated to the study. Jiang Siren followed him in, while the other Shinran sect monks stood guard outside to prevent anyone from intruding. "Master, why don't we release Wei Yi first?" Wang Yin said in a deep voice. Chapter 125 Release. "Master, why don't we just release Wei Yi first?" Wang Yin said in a deep voice. Jiang Siren was silent for a moment, then said, "We'll see how we get through tonight. They're just here to put pressure on us, so they probably won't dare to act recklessly for now. But we can't let Wei Yi go tonight, or your authority as the county magistrate will be shattered. I'm afraid Wei Yi will become even more arrogant and disregard us. Locking him up for a night will help to dampen his arrogance and see how many connections and backers he has in King's House City." "Alright then, Master, please keep me safe tonight," Wang Yin said with a worried look on his face as he sat in his chair. Wei Yi, through Orange's senses, was fully aware of everything that had transpired at the county government gate. He hadn't expected his imprisonment to alarm so many people. The arrival of the Yu family, in particular, was a complete surprise. However, he had a vague suspicion that it might be connected to Zhao Hanking or the Xiangsha alliance. This was perhaps the saying, "Those who carry firewood for the people should not be left to freeze to death in the wind and snow." Everyone had witnessed everything he had done for King's House City. The Ministry of Revenue's implementation of the Chamber of Commerce system and its requirement that families donate money to the Shinran sect had sparked widespread outrage, but most dared not speak out. His execution of Wang Yinchang had ignited the flames of resistance within the people. Now, those sparks had coalesced into a raging fire, emboldening them to confront the power of the Shinran sect. Wei Yi felt a warm warmth in his heart. This was why he wanted to protect this place. There were many people here who truly cared for him. There were also people he truly wanted to protect. Soon after, loud cries rang out again from outside the county government office. "Release them! Release them! Release them!" Hearing the cries, Wang Yin, who had just sat down, suddenly stood up in panic. He walked to the door and looked outside, feeling a sense of unease. At that moment, a shrill voice rang out from outside. "Who do you think you are? Get out of the way." Zhao Jin's voice followed. "Sir Wang, I want to ask you, all the county yamen runners are here. Who is interrogating Wei Yi right now?" Wang Yin's face darkened, and for a moment, he didn't know how to respond. "We want to see young Master Wei. If you want to interrogate him, then do it in the courtroom. We can serve as witnesses. You're locking him up in a cell and interrogating him for no reason. I can't help but suspect you have ulterior motives." Lin Zuna shouted. She hadn't known about Wei Yi's Confucian and Taoist powers. She was deeply concerned that he might be persecuted, perhaps even endangered. Her fear was utterly veiled. Seeing Wang Yin's attempt at cowardice, Lin Zuna angrily shouted, "Sir Wang, if you don't come out, I'll go in myself." She was about to storm into the study, but the Shinran sect monks stationed there blocked the door with a fierce look on their faces. They were only at the late middle stage of key refining. They were no match for Linzuna, who had reached the 5th rank of Wu Dao cultivation. With a swish, Linzuna drew the Chengying sword from her waist. The sword was still fresh in blood. If she didn't see Wei Yi tonight, she wouldn't mind chopping off those Shinran sect bastards. Sir Wang, would you like me to invite the old prince over? Zhao Jinsi asked again. Hearing this, Wang Yin's last line of defense collapsed. He knew all too well the old prince's importance. He was a man even his majesty respected. Zhao Jinsi was the old prince's most beloved granddaughter. The Zhao family was one of the most prestigious martial arts families in the Great Yan dynasty. They possessed a strong family background, numerous powerful individuals, and held military power. If he truly angered the Zhao family, he would have more than enough lives to survive. So he immediately opened the door and emerged. Come on, first, release Wei Yi and retrieve him tomorrow, Wang Yin said gravely. He couldn't care less right now, he'd go back and talk tonight. Yes. Upon hearing Wang Yin's words, the guards beside him beamed and immediately ran to the prison. Jiang Siren, in the room, said nothing. He hadn't expected these people to be so mad, unwilling to even wait a night. If Wei Yi wasn't released, they might really cause a scene at the county yamen tonight. It seems Wei Yi is the uncrowned king of King's House City. Jiang Siren thought to himself. If he hadn't experienced it first then tonight, he would never have imagined that a mere commoner could command such influence. He even had powerful families like the Zhao, Lin, Li, Guo, and Yu families all come to his defense. This only made Jiang Siren even more certain. The one family case was definitely linked to Wei Yi. When Wei Yi emerged from the county yamen, everyone lined the streets to greet him. Seeing Wei Yi safe and sound, Zhao Jinsi, Lin Zuna, Du Shaoling, and the others were relieved. Brother Wei, they didn't give you any trouble, did they? Guo Pixiu hurried forward and asked. No, I just experienced life in the cell, Wei Yi said with a smile. That's good. If these bastards dare to touch you, I will kill them, Guo Pixiu said with a smile. Before Guo Pixiu finished his words, he was slapped on the back of the head. Guo Dayan, standing behind him, scolded, don't keep saying I'm your father all the time. I'm your father. Wei Yi smiled, then looked at the crowd present and bowed, saying, thank you all for coming to help. I'm deeply grateful for what happened today. I will definitely remember this favor. Young Master Wei, go back and rest. Patrol Battalion, retreat, Liu said with a smile. He then led the patrol battalion guards out of the county government office. You will also go back first, Yu Zhengang said with a fist. He then left with the other warriors. Master Wei, we are going back too. Du Shaoling and everyone from King Feng Academy bowed and left. Come on, we'll take you home. Wei Yi returned home, escorted by Lin Zuna, Zhao Jinsi, Guo Pixiu and others. At this time, his aunt and sister were also waiting anxiously in the yard. In addition, there were Meng Shulian and Su Lingayan, as well as cats all over the yard. Seeing Wei Yi's safe return, everyone felt relieved. At this time, on the West Lake, a pleasure boat was slowly gliding in the lake. There were not many people in the pleasure boat, because the members who were originally scheduled to attend this party did not show up, because of Wei Yi's matter. Therefore, the only people who were discussing how to get rid of Wang Yin, the minion of the Shinran sect, were Han Kuang, Zhao Hanking, and several other members of the Xiangxia League. Killing Wang Yin wouldn't be difficult, but he's protected by cultivators from the Shinran sect, especially that one named Jiang, who's in the late foundation establishment stage. Few in this city can match him. Well, with Wang Yinchang's murder, the Shinran sect will surely intensify their protection of Wang Yin, so our actions would be very risky. Then we'll find a way to strike while they're separated. But the Shinran sect has many tracking methods. Even if they succeed, they'll probably be able to quickly locate the murderer. So, the assassin we send will be a deadly force, destined to never return. Yes, this requires careful planning. Wang Yin must have many life-saving talismans and magical instruments on him. A successful assassination won't be easy. Everyone discussed, but no concrete progress was made. After all, no one present was truly proficient in assassination or possessed absolute force. Everyone, go back and think of a plan. We'll make a detailed plan in 3 days, once everyone's gathered. Han Kang said. It's the end of the month. Please support me with some monthly votes. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.